RPA Online considered premier fantasy realm among contemporary games. Cutting-edge virtual reality games utilizes specialized gaming pod, provides remarkable, truly immersive, realistic five senses experience. With its proprietary, innovative scanning mechanism technology, possible to generate an avatar identical to the user's physique, utilizing state-of-the-art advanced AI artificial intelligence. Non-playable characters' monsters behave with genuine sentience, delivering engaging, well-balanced gameplay experience, not overwhelming. In its critical user evaluations reviews, Arpeggio Online lauded as Korea's ultimate best online experience, owing to its widespread, immense popularity. Individuals now observing, scrutinizing player behavior's actions, amongst the highest top-tier rankings. Most noteworthy, however, is 50th ranked warrior named Bartz. The explanation for this concentrated attention on him, rather than those with superior higher rankings. Because within Arpeggio Online world, where teamwork cooperation considered absolutely crucial vital, he is known as a dedicated lone wolf solo player defeated Wrath Dragon single-handedly. Numerous various unconfirmed stories circulate regarding him. Some speculate he possesses game development connections, or perhaps he is an affluent, wealthy individual who expended a substantial fortune on this avatar. But his actual persona is jobless Kong Yuhan. Our hero Kong, boasting, bragging, showing off, claims ignorance towards the public's excitement about him, defeating a mere insignificant, simple Wrath Dragon, and that the players were in a frenzy, a commotion, while he visited his elderly grandmother. Now unclothed in the city center, he wonders what exactly is occurring at night, gestures to our hero, labeling him insane and laughing mockingly, while others felt repulsed, disgusted by the sight, debating whether to contact an admin or report the incident. Kong pleaded, desperately asking them to wait to equip clothing, and implores them to not file a complaint. However, he discovers his inventory completely vacant, questioning what is occurring. He sees no possessions and wonders if it's a glitch, a malfunction, inquiring about the report button, the complaint function location. Upon contact, the protagonist discovers something startling. Kong had reverted to beginning level, possessing no equipment. His mother, upon hearing her son's outcry, shriek, rapidly entered his chamber, inquiring about a possible burglar. Our visibly shaken hero gains his mother's focus to clarify, and she anxiously awaits the forthcoming explanation revelation, subverting expectations of a grave matter issue problem. Kong voices concern about a potential account compromise. His mother, after processing the statement utterance words, inquires about the account in Kang's gaming application, which he subsequently affirms, confirms, acknowledges, verifies, causing his mother to become infuriated, enraged, furious, because he had yelled, screamed for such a trivial reason, and questions Kong about a prior commitment assurance pledge. After his university education was suspended, postponed, halted, he would manage his affairs independently, autonomously. But he has only remained home playing video games recreation, and during preparatory educational sessions, instruction learning. He slumbers in class. How can he possibly improve himself thus? Kang's mother forcefully slams the door shut closed, claiming she is experiencing cardiac arrest from rage fury. Kong withdraws to a secluded area with sorrow grief, bewailing the time spent upgrading his virtual persona and requesting the restoration of his digital embodiment. The top individual competitor globally, worldwide, internationally, with numerous accolades, such as the mythical beast slayer, has vanished, evaporated into thin air, disappeared completely. A DreamMax Corporation representative inquires assistance needed. Kong had contacted assistance, reported account breach compromise. He stated he submitted a formal complaint as service request, but received a reply stating all was functioning correctly. And that is demonstrably untrue, inaccurate, a blatant falsehood. The agent verifies account information credentials with Kong and instructs him to remain on hold briefly, momentarily. Kong nervously anticipates the representative's feedback report and the identical reply response answer feedback that the protagonist character was generated 4 days prior, not appearing to exhibit any irregularities, discrepancies, problems. Kong contends that his character created during trial period, and his progress was erased, and he was entirely unclothed. The worker states that this particular Bart's, whom Kong mentions, was erased 5 days prior, but the main character was absent this entire duration. So how could he have possibly removed the account? He says DreamHack possesses top-tier security protocols, and that it's unfortunate to relay this news to him. But there exists a strong possibility, a likely chance, that this stems from inadequate handling of private data. Kong, visibly irritated, agitated, inquires if they are attributing blame to him, and a representative suggests a weekly password update. Avert forestall prevents such incidents from reoccurring. Records indicate no password modification was performed. And user agreement stipulates company not liable for inadequate user management of private information. Nearly sobbing, Kong conveys understanding, ends the conversation. Following the disconnection, the termination of call, he asserts if he didn't erase the character himself, then it's evident, obvious, apparent it was compromised, despite lacking knowledge of the perpetrator identity. He will not pardon the perpetrator culprit responsible. Kong resolutely declares he will locate this wretched individual. Outside the residence, someone approaches with protagonist's sibling, who enters speaking about a maternal request. But he finds Kong in a lamentable state of despair, intoxication. Kong presents a beverage to his younger brother, and he thinks he's insane because he's underage, a minor. Kang's brother inquires if he finally broke down while preparing for the government employment examination. But Kong says he lost, was defeated, was vanquished. Today marked the anniversary of his beloved's passing. So how could he be composed on such a somber day? Slightly disheartened, his brother attempts to comfort him, but believes he is a failure, a good for nothing. Because besides constant gaming, playing all day long, he still creates this melodrama, returning to his initial purpose. The brother states their mother requests a kitchen utensil, a ladle. But Kong states he's occupied, engaged, and tells his brother to leave go. Gun cautions that he must attend the preparatory class session, and assumes he is a secondary school pupil, a teenager, and his sibling is jobless, without work, unemployed, making obvious, evident, clear who should provide aid assistance. Kong believes his brother a terrible, awful person, and he has zero regard for his elder sibling. He becomes annoyed, agitated by thoughts of his brother, believing he is superior, better than him. Arriving at a corner shop, mini-mart convenience store, he speaks to his dad, saying mom requested a dipper spoon. Kong claims ignorance while examining some ladles, dippers. He suggests hers broke during meal, food, rice preparation. The father appears skeptical, doubtful, unbelieving, inquiring, questioning, asking, how much strength, power needed to break a ladle like so? Kong states he is unaware, unknowing. But everything has inherent built-in resilience, durability, though his mom likely didn't contemplate this. While grasping, clutching, holding a ladle dipper, our hero had a sudden epiphany, insightful idea about durability. His dad looks at him with apprehension, fear, alarm, while Kong acts like an antagonist, evildoer, scoundrel baddie, who devised another foolproof, flawless, certain plan. He rotates with assurance, declares he comprehended, understood. Brimming with elation, he exclaims, Eureka, I found it, and vanishes from the establishment instantly, immediately, even snatching his father's hairpiece from his head. The patriarch hollers for him to shut the exit when departing, but Kong was already distant, far gone, ascending the steps at a rapid breakneck speed velocity. He contemplates Arpedia Online possesses a resilient system, and every piece of gear expends an amount of durability when utilized, when the item's endurance depletes to nothing. It is obliterated. That's why gamers rush to blacksmiths, who are adept at mending their armaments swiftly, quickly, as the restoration capability alters by proficiency level. The larger, more costly the apparatus, equipment, gear, the greater the expertise of the blacksmith we should entrust with it. Now what might transpire, happen, if a high-level blacksmith commenced mending, fixing gear for a meager, paltry, insignificant price, so everyone would seek him, requesting equipment repair. Bart's entire apparatus was costly and uncommon. Thus, the perpetrator couldn't have erased them, alongside the user profile account. If a perpetrator chose to vend the possessions prior to profile deletion, he can locate them by pursuing the transaction trail. Kong instructs the blasted individual who compromised him to briefly tarry, and he will assault him upon discovery capture. The protagonist finds himself before a massive barrier and a gilded sphere with appendages wings. The gilded sphere was an individual welcoming the protagonist hero, inquiring if he desired to participate in the game experience, which Kong declines, refuses, stating he prefers to generate a fresh persona character. The escort requested to select the persona's birth date, and Kong states any arbitrary one is suitable acceptable. Akira's birth date will be April the 4th, and the escort inquires if he desires to select the persona's appellation, arbitrarily as well too, but is rejected as Kong wishes to personally select it. He contemplates the appellation he should employ, and desired it to be brief and commanding. Like his former persona, he states he knows and selects the moniker Zig. His appellation will henceforth be Zig, and the massive portal opens, signaling the commencement of the game. The persona Zig is being generated formed, and the protagonist, the champion, declares this will be the name of Arpia's finest metalworker. Already within the game world, he overhears dialogue, a conversation. But our protagonist does not comprehend, grasp, understand. The metalworker states his craft demands, necessitates, requires unshakable, steadfast, unwavering patience, and tenacity, resilience, fortitude. Not something a youth could accomplish with ease, simplicity. Now that he has grasped the situation, comprehended, the smith requested the hero to vacate his forge's workshop. This is the metalworker Kabuchi, the blacksmith. The irate, angered metalworker aims his hammer at Kong and demands he vanish from there immediately, leaving our protagonist uncertain how to resolve this predicament. There are two methods to secure a crafting vocation in Arpedia. One path involves acquiring knowledge by purchasing a skill manual, while the alternative involves learning through practical experience. The latter choice enables earning income alongside job advancement, but every individual universally avoids it, shuns it, because every non-player character blacksmith master possesses a formidable personality. Among them are noteworthy heroic figures, legends. Kabuchi consistently engaged in combat-fought battles when he sought equipment repairs with Bart's. But considering his present predicament circumstances, this represents his sole option. K wraps the smithy entrance, believing an advancement quest would prove simple, straightforward. He proceeds inside, enters the building. Requesting entry, he declares his blacksmith aspirations. The resident blacksmith inquires if he comprehended correctly, and the protagonist confirms his statement. Aspiring to become the world's finest blacksmith, Kabuchi immediately dismisses the possibility, which astonishes the hero. Kabuchi asserts that by mere observation, he discerns his lack of blacksmith potential, and the hero requests a minimal evaluation assessment. Before the metalworker considers the trial evaluation, Kong declares he can undertake any assigned task. Kabuchi subsequently divides a timber stack for our champion, and requests he chop them all within a single day. He states he will instruct if Kong completes this assignment, leaving Kong humiliated, disgraced by the given mission objective. The metalworker asserts he can forfeit if desired, but the protagonist resolves to commence labor work. However, he lacks aptitude, skill, talent for the task. He attempted to strike the timber, but the logs evaded his axe. The protagonist becomes irritated, frustrated by this chore duty, and declares he has observed numerous players progressing concurrently, simultaneously together, and acquiring the skill of hammering, striking metal. A nearby man responds that it is due to inherent affinity. Kong inquires about his identity, and the man replies he also seeks apprenticeship training. The man reminds the protagonist about character creation day, and clarifies that birth date signifies job profession affinity. Kong despairs because he ignored birth date significance importance. The man comforts him, stating he also felt annoyed, irritated by that. The protagonist contemplates generating a fresh persona, but reaching level 10 again deemed troublesome, bothersome. He relinquishes, believing Kabuchi would regardless instruct him if he successfully finished the assigned task objective. so he proceeds with his current undertaking assignment. Eventually, the forest became effortlessly felled chopped. Our hero progressed the smith, amazed by all the work accomplished within a single-day period time frame. Kong reminds him about his prior commitment pledge, inquiring if he will now be formally employed engaged. But Pabuchi declines brandishing, displaying a blade. He requests the hero retrieve 10 embers from Lancelot Mountain, contemplating pondering the mountainous terrain area. He recalls the mine, suggested level 15 to 45, and his superior is quite perilous, menacing, threatening. Kong inquires if the smith will bear liability for his demise, and he states that is why he is providing a weapon. Our protagonist ponders his unfortunate, terrible affinity. He grasps the blade, embracing accepting a new task, and inquires if he pledges to train him as a metalworker. Pabuchi affirms presence already within the mountain range. The objective requires hero journey designated spot location and retrieve 10 dark charcoal pieces. Kong commences gathering, accumulating the coals, exerting significant, considerable effort in his task labor, while taking a respite, a break, pause moment. He contemplates, not all resolved with sheer raw strength, and attempts to recall the woodcutting sequence pattern design. One should grip handle lightly and brandish swing like blade. Kong executes mighty powerful strike, obtains a black coal. Feeling pleased, satisfied, decides to proceed, continue on, believing it's simply recalling the blade sword swing motion. The task objective assignment is subsequently completed. Only coal delivery to the metalsmith is left. Amidst a conflict battle war zone scenario setting, the hero strolled calmly while pondering the hacker coder. A creature beast appears before him in front, utterly, completely astonished by that formidable creature beast. Worsening matters, it was the mountain peak overlord boss. The enraged boar swine bellows, roars at hero, attempting intimidation. Kong, astonished, commences fleeing with utmost strength. All present participants terrified by the leader arrival. The enraged swine emerges solely daily in arbitrary spot. It was pure happenstance he materialized before Kong, owing to his designated role classification. The protagonist anticipates perishing from solitary blow. The wild pig parts its jaws, uncovers its mouth, exposing pointed fangs, attempts assaulting the protagonist, who barely evades. He realizes the boss fixated on him and understands he must swiftly escape, retreat, flee. In this specific game production, roles severely disadvantaged. In simulated reality, interactive experiences, the avatar's physique linked to the actual physical form, as Arpedia Online prioritizes authentic, lifelike gameplay. This implies, depending on individuals' inherent capabilities, unfavorable battles remain potentially winnable, achievable. The hero progresses understanding the boar's vulnerability, its head, and firmly believes regardless of his meager damage output, he can triumph by striking the critical area, the weakness. The hero's blade nears the wild pig, approaches the boar, but it is deflected by the superior enemy combatant. Astonishing Kong, the wild pig charges angrily toward him, and the protagonist comprehends that he was impeded, obstructed, because he lacks sufficient movement, velocity, swiftness. In peril, he contemplates if he had foreseen this occurrence. He would have allocated points to agility, dexterity, adroitness. As the swine nears, it bellows loudly moments before collision. The champion attempts to devise a strategy, a scheme. He ponders whether he should flee, abscond, escape, but declines, questioning his concern over a mere enraged hog. And engaging in combat, the warrior recalls he is Bart's. Despite being a non-permanent, fleeting persona, his role is enduring, lasting as he progresses forward. His endurance abruptly depletes and nearly struck by the pig. A projectile is launched at the adversary, the foe. Kong discerns is a swine, a boar assault attack. The hog, however, in contrast, is not severely harmed, having lost a tusk fragment, but that was significant, crucial to it. The archer wonders about their action, their deed, unbelieving they inflicted such minimal harm, little damage. The wild pig then focuses its attention toward the female, leaping upon her, startling, frightening the gamer. Kong recommends targeting the cranium, its weak point vulnerability. The bowman then spots a luminous, shining, bright area, Upon the creature's head, he releases a potent energy projectile, inflicting 720 damage points, ultimately conquering the enraged wild boar. The main character experiences relief, breathes a sigh of relief, remarking it was a near miss as the bowman neared. Kong contemplates expressing gratitude, thanking her. But the lady places her upper limbs upon his shoulders, inquiring if they previously encountered each other somewhere before. She states he appears recognizable, familiar, and asks if she is mistaken. Kong is uneasy with the proximity, the closeness, and appears to not know the woman. The female asks if he failed to comprehend what she said. Prior to him being able to respond anything. Kong starts sprinting, fleeing, leaving the inquisitive woman behind. At last, the burning embers are delivered, and the lead character reflects, ponders, that these marvels are a first-time encounter for him. Abuchi confesses he did not foresee Kang's triumph. Hero, irritated, inquires about his dispatch purpose. Then the metalworker admits his misjudgment about him, and the hero's valor should be utilized effectively. Finally, employing him, Kong is elated by his achievement, and the system guidance becomes visible, inquiring if Kong desires to embrace the metalworking craft, which he ultimately agrees to. Kong transitions into a metalworking craftsman blacksmith. He believes Zig's legendary tale has commenced just now. The metalworker questions Kang's current activity in action. Standing motionless, he summons him to labor as he departs. The hero contemplates, reflects, ponders continuously that he will locate the account hacker culprit perpetrator. Kong commences hammering, striking a bladed sword, but his skill was lacking after completing another task. Kong optimistically muses this might be satisfactory positive, but upon presentation to the metalworking craftsman expert, he declares it preposterous, asserting with this sharpness point, it cannot even slice paper parchment, and crushing the protagonist's spirit by stating, he is fortunate materials not deducted. Kong inquires if he is excessively demanding, and the metalsmith tells him be silent and forge 30 additional swords. If even a single one resembles that particular blade, he will be terminated. The protagonist becomes enraged, then weeps, cries. But he is resolved to craft the finest sword Pabuchi has witnessed. The protagonist grasps a sword and scrutinizes it, examines it, observing that it is inadequate, subpar. He ponders where he is erring, faltering, failing. The narrative describes it as an atrocious, dreadful, small sword crafted by a novice, unskilled metalsmith blacksmith, and is utterly useless. It cuts nothing without shattering, breaking. Confronted with the task at hand, the presented work, Kong perceives himself nearing dismissal, termination. He attempts again and discerns that this instant's time. He forged a distinct, unique sword with peculiar, unusual blue lines. Gazing at the remaining others, different ones, he detects that these lines also exist within them, present on them. Kong nears another smith who inquires his action's purpose. The overseer observes the other blade is superior, finer, and the engravings have a distinct, differing pattern design. The metalworker becomes enraged, demands his creation return, but Kong aims the weapon at the smith's countenance face, which further intensifies his aggravation, annoyance, irritation. He inquires if the man perceives the same vision sight. He is questioning if a person can see unusual markings, lines. He simply declares the protagonist is demented, insane, unhinged, and requests to not have the blade pointed his direction. Our courageous champion examines the weapon once more again, but chooses to prioritize completing the mission objective first. The task requires the restoration of 5 hatchets axes that must be presented to Papuki recipient. Kong observes, examines a single hatchet axe tool, and detects crimson markings, lines on this implement tool. But he deems it inconsequential, unimportant, insignificant, and perhaps it will vanish, disappear upon repair, restoration. The protagonist strikes the hatchet with his mallet hammer, but he shatters it, failing the mending restoration process. He weeps, believing when circumstances dire they worsen, they invariably discover a path to deteriorate further. Nevertheless, something captures his awareness, his attention. The fractured metal adheres to the designated pattern. The protagonist conceives a notion that will alter all. within the metalworker's residence dwelling abode. Pabuchi loudly inquires of Zig task completion status and declares his tardiness. He locates Kong and approaches. The metalworker inquires about the saws and axes' whereabouts. Pabuchi, observing more intently, scrutinizing closely, is astonished. Those blades were flawless, impeccable. Pabuchi grasps one of them, awestruck, amazed, and the protagonist inquires about his assessment opinion. Kong enthusiastically questions the sword's perfection, flawlessness during the weapon fabrication, construction, creation. After numerous endeavors, the hero discovered a revelation. Azure lines materialize upon hammer impact with the blade. The form is impacted by the velocity and location of impact. The greater the alignment and consistent spacing distribution, the superior the quality becomes regarding the crimson lines. Internal flaws and weaknesses of the apparatus. Theoretically, if you mend both these pathways, you can flawlessly restore anything. These channels are deceptive techniques to fabricate and mend anything. On a different plane, the protagonist spent several sleepless nights for this, but the outcome was exceptional. Thus, he acquired a flawed capability. Pabuchi grabs Zig's awareness, startling him greatly. He declares that the weaponry turned out astonishing, remarkable, and that he has no further wisdom knowledge to impart. Kong fails to comprehend his pronouncements' utterances. The metalsmith clarifies his expertise has already eclipsed his own. Pabuchi was genuinely astounded, because individuals lacking aptitude, such as himself, typically relinquish at the commencement outset. A champion then considers something deeply, and inquires if anyone similar to him has ever succeeded his trial, which the metalsmith refutes, denies completely. Kong questions if anyone ever professed to perceive pathways, and Pabuchi claims ignorance of what he is saying. The protagonist believes he must have achieved a hidden accomplishment. The prerequisites could be attaining a specific threshold and receiving instruction from a non-player character blacksmith without possessing any natural inclination, aptitude, talent. Kong surmises he hasn't encountered anything similar online, and it's probable he's the sole observer, witness, viewer. He's the exclusive gamer possessing that particular skill. Ultimately, the champion declares matters becoming intriguing. Peepu is unaware why Bartz was so resolute to remain solitary, and inquires about the justification, explanation, rationale for this. In his history, Kong endured torment, harassment, intimidation. After all his ordeals, experiences, tribulations, he deemed individuals unreliable, not dependable, not trustworthy. Then he awakens in his father's convenience shop store market, recognizing he was merely fantasizing about the virtual world. He ponders if it's due to inadequate, insufficient rest, sleep, and didn't desire to oversee the family business. While there's an absence of patrons, clients, shoppers, abruptly his mobile device telephone starts ringing. The main character is intrigued by the unfamiliar digits. He responds, inquiring about the caller's identity. The gentleman introduces himself as Ing Ho Shik and states he's representing Dream Max support assistance. Upon hearing this, the protagonist wanted to disconnect the call, but the representative requested he remain on hold, inquiring if he had contacted them recently prior. Overjoyed, the hero asks if they reinstated his avatar, but the agent declines because their protocol guidelines forbid restoring erased accounts' profiles. However, they offer a modest restitution compensation. Kong inquires if it equates to losing his character progress, and states he requires no remuneration reparations. The worker presents a new capsule model valued at $8,000. Our protagonist is astonished by the monetary sum figure. Immediately declares he accepts amidst a tropical paradise setting. Someone inquires about the discussion outcome results. Another individual replies, stating ultimately, in conclusion, everything concluded satisfactorily, favorably well. When the device was brought up, discussed. The customer is likely, presumably, probably, appreciative of the director's management handling resolution. Sensation expresses contentment, pleasure, satisfaction hearing this. The gentleman converses with the supervisor using notepad, inquiring reason behind financing a capsule for the young boy lad. In response, the chief executive states, despite being compromised, he persists playing rather than surrendering, conceding defeat. Furthermore, he is currently playing as metalworker or smith, a role players typically evade, shun, avoid at all costs. Ultimately, he declares, asserts, proclaims. He eagerly anticipates what our champion will achieve. In the subsequent update within the virtual world game, a notification communication informs advises that they are enlisting gamers to raid Deborah's dungeon lair. A previous lady female observes the announcement proclamation. However, the team already possesses has an archer bowman. Thus, she ponders why locating a party is challenging difficult. Every time she discovers one locates a suitable group, they quit. She contemplates forming a trio, a 3-person team. Abruptly, she collides with an individual somebody. As she rotates to express remorse, regret, she encounters the main character once more again. The lady remarks, "It was pleasant, delightful to see him." But Kong flees before any conversation. This instance, the lady pursues him, follows closely, requesting a moment, a brief period of his time. Kong attempts escape, but the lady keeps pace, maintains speed. Finally, our protagonist becomes fatigued, grows weary, relenting, submitting, inquiring her desires, her wishes. The lady inquires about forming a team, a collective. Kong questions the notion. The lady explains the labyrinth. But Kong possessed prior knowledge, was already aware, because Bart's initially located it, discovered it first. The lady states her group has 3 individuals, 3 people. His acceptance would make it 4 quartet, which is advisable, suggested, recommended. However, the protagonist declines. The lady persists, tries harder, but he refuses conversation, refuses dialogue. Dejectedly, she inquires the reason, the cause. But Kong seems reluctant to elaborate, unwilling to explain. Amidst turmoil, people admired the protagonist's restoration's mends. Someone comments, despite requiring some duration, some time, the restoration rate is completely 100% entirely. It was inexpensive, merely 30 gold pieces coins. Kong, already exceptionally fatigued, exhausted, weary, did not anticipate such a throng multitude and ponders increasing price. However, he strikes himself on the face abruptly. Recalling his objective is to apprehend the cybercriminal. Kong summons the subsequent individual and encounters the archer's weapon, the rank reduction instrument he possessed as Bart's previously. He surmises he has discovered a lead hint regarding the hacker. But upon meticulous examination, closer scrutiny, observation, he observes is missing a specific emblem, insignia, symbol. The individual provides him payment compensation, and Kong feels he is being regarded as a fool, imbecile dolt. 2 men deliberate if they would offer a particular item to a lady, and the other replies affirmatively, yes, indeed, absolutely, because one must expend funds to woo, charm, captivate women. Kong becomes exasperated, annoyed, irritated by that dialogue. The ginger-haired individual thinks, besides aiding in the subterranean labyrinth, they are additionally providing an uncommon item as a present offering. So it would be logical, sensible, justifiable if she encountered them personally. His companion affirms that after she obtains, receives, acquires all that, she unable decline, men intend intimidate if refused. Kong discerns they are villains, miscreants, and pities whomever they are victimizing, injuring while mending the weapon, the bow. The men choose to relay a communication to her. One states her online alias was Shay, causing protagonist halt work, grab men's focus. Kong declares the restoration is finished, complete, yet he retains holds onto the bow of the weapon. Kong recalls it was the prior archer's moniker. Protagonist knows no duplicate appellations in game exist, and the men grow anxious, desiring weapon return. Our lead deduces she is likely the identical individual. Loosening bow, causing the man to tumble down. Redhead inquires his well-being, other enraged at hero, confronting him, questioning his sanity. He demanded Kong apologize or face game expulsion. Background man requests they relocate themselves if their mending is finished, completed, because additional individuals are queued waiting. Tempest Guilford commands, leads the Red Tiger mercenaries, regarded, esteemed as the absolute strongest among all. A renowned, celebrated player ranked number 45 server-wide, and currently he queued awaited at Blacksmith Zig establishment. The hired soldier examines his blade in dreadful state. and contemplates he possesses fond, cherished memories using it. It has encountered numerous multiple blacksmiths, and should Zig fail to resolve this predicament, he will pursue a true expert specialist. The soldier observes the previous men and inquires why they linger. Do not depart exit after the mending completion is finished. Then taking charge, leading, and menacingly intimidating them closely. The fellow identifies the seasoned warrior, and ponders why such a high superior level is present here. They express remorse apologies and hastily run away. Tempest mocks the protagonist's companion's education knowledge, and asks Kong about mending his novice basic sword. The hero confirms its feasibility, and requests patience await. Tempest reflects that Yin being grade D signifies a 99% chance probability. Is astounding, believes the smith possesses concealed talents. Kong attempts to concentrate his attention, reasoning it is not his responsibility concern, but he cannot avoid recalling the past events. Tempest is greatly pleased, content satisfied, believes he will display the blade in the guild hall. Following the restoration, mending however, Kong inadvertently breaks the weapon, leaving Tempest stunned. The soldier, nearly weeping, asks what occurred, addressing the champion, asking his intended action. But Mr. Zig promptly exits the virtual world, leaving Tempest enraged with his reflection. Before the entrance, the bowman, the archer, accompanied by the two men, prepare for entry. A notification proclaims Bart was first discoverer, the markswoman amazed by her observation. The ginger shares anecdotes, whispers in her ear, and the other claims they possess clearing expertise. Novice, simple dungeons before touching her shoulder. He inquires about their departure, should they leave now. But Kong appears unexpectedly joyful about punctual arrival. Kong asks if they're the designated Deborah dungeon explorers. The archer expresses joy seeing the unappreciative metalworker. The protagonist claims he is not unthankful, not ungrateful. And the lady confirms she rescued him from peril, saved him. And he departed without expressing gratitude, thank you. Regardless, nonetheless, in any case. She accepts the hero's presence, introduces herself as Sia. Kong contemplates a greeting, but simply states his name. CS expresses pleasure in making his acquaintance meeting him, and introduces the group members to the protagonist hero. She declares the two are at level 70 experience level. The men recall the boy as the previous blacksmith encountered, already commencing to formulate a strategy, make a plan. The man states since he practices metalworking, is a blacksmith, he must lack combat skills, and questions his preparedness well-being. She assures everything is satisfactory, will be fine, because she personally witnessed his strength, his power. Dirk states exploring with a non-combatant is unwise, detrimental, and believes he has never encountered a skilled metalsmith. Kenning asserts it is a happenstance chance occurrence, and inquires if they are the individuals he met at the establishment, declaring that he should express regret for prior events. The protagonist requests him to not fret, worry, be concerned, because he will not discuss trivial, unimportant matters. The gentleman remains dubious, skeptical, unsure, and suggests they depart before time runs out expires. Alvin inquires if their scheme strategy will succeed with that scoundrel present. Gers assures all is well, and if anything arises, they can simply eliminate him. If they force Kong to depart, withdraw. The young lady would become distrustful, suspicious, wary. Kong observes from afar, a distance remotely. Already inside the subterranean prison cell, the players begin to engage in combat. Sia is astonished by their abilities' prowess, and spectators believe Sia must harbor romantic feelings for him. However, her focus was not directed at him, but rather on Kong instead, who vanquishes the skeletal warriors by targeting their vulnerabilities. Kong evades an onslaught, and a beast readies another assault. Lacking any aptitude, Kong understands if assaulted, he will be imperiled, thus must conclude it swiftly, expeditiously. He charges directly toward the woodman's fragility, which is its power source and also its core essence. He detonates with the offensive. The hero's stamina diminishes, and the system suggests nourishment. Si Aniclimax observis comments. Awestruck by the team members that despite lacking any proficiency, Kong could conquer them all simultaneously instantaneously, which leaves judges exasperated for eclipsing his triumph. Judges believed he would clear the labyrinth effortlessly easily, but falters and perceives the metalworker as a menace. A skeletal warrior prepares to unleash a toxic projectile. Duras deflects the missile projectile. However, another strikes, Kong hits him. Duras begins to feel self-important arrogant, believing he was under surveillance being observed, but Sia's focus was upon Kong, who was vocalizing agony, suffering distress. While the program cautions, he entered immobility state. The individuals brag before hero ridicule him, saying he is humiliating, shaming himself. They instruct the metalworker rest while immobile, because they cannot transport him upon their shoulders. Xia confronts them, stating cannot abandon him. However, Kong consents to being forsaken, warns after recovery. You shall pursue them, follow behind them. Geo states all can observe the team location coordinates, so there is zero cause for concern, worry. Xia is somewhat hesitant, apprehensive about this, but she acquiesces, requests hero to trail them. After the consequence, concludes the participants depart. Then Kong opens his personal storage compartment, outfitting a tonic, consuming it, drinking it down. Our protagonist ingested the remedy, wonders if he should commence. The radiance from Alden's rod brightens the route. The men converse amongst regarding C's archery weapon. C inquires if it is inferior gear, since appears opulent. The men assure her there is no need for concern, because for their expertise, it is a trivial, ordinary object. Furthermore, they claim they are not skilled archers. Thus, it is not an issue, and Sia graciously accepts the present. Expressing gratitude, the men observing her delight, pleasure. Resumed having impure thoughts when abruptly, suddenly, an object strikes the primary leading staff, resulting in the staff collapsing and the illumination vanishing. Amidst the obscurity, it was challenging to orient oneself, until the sorcerer finally locates his staff and ignites the light, confronting a multitude of skeletal creatures before him. They inquire what in the world this could possibly be, searching for Sia and noticing she had already retreated. The gamers state they will attempt to endure while encircled. An individual pulls Sia away and she inquires who it is, stating she must return to assist her companion's colleagues. A flaming brand illuminates the area. It is disclosed that her rescuer was indeed Kong, requesting her to compose herself, remain calm. Sia questions his presence there and insists on aiding others. But Kong asserts if they attain level 70, they will be safe within a 45 level instance. The combatants have vanquished all creatures and are exhausted. Curse ponders what sort of scoundrel would commit such an act, but he directs his companion's notice to many uncommon treasures scattered upon the surface, the floor. They become enthusiastic about potential success, triumph, victory, and their gazes become filled with avarice, covetousness. Abruptly, an individual materializes, commanding them to halt, cease, inquiring if they're distributing the loot on the ground, and labeling them as worthless garbage, refuse. Just becomes enraged and questions who speaks so disrespectfully. The person reveals himself to be Sovereign Charles the King, a 100-level gamer, and declares ownership of the goods. Juz and Alden, two individuals, notorious within the group for mistreating women players. They coerce ladies into real-world encounters and threaten them. Subsequently, no accounts or reports emerged, but the gamers never rejoined the virtual world, the game, implying something truly dreadful, terrible had occurred. A gamer vanishing holds little significance, but the protagonist had already firmly resolved that they would be permanently banished from the virtual world. Returning back into the digital realm, the match, Kong captures the creature's attention with his light source, a torch. He garnered the notice of another player assembly a group, and possessing intimate knowledge of the instance layout, the dungeon. He understood that anybody could enact this strategy, this plan. The hero impersonated a digital thief, pilfered numerous objects, several items, depositing them at a single spot, one location. This subsequently enrages the players, greatly infuriates them. owing to frequent occurrences of gamer theft, player robbery. They despise loathe pilferers, so when a minor ruse emerges appears, all unite, collaborate to address it, resolve the issue. Amidst the multitude of irate gamers, angry players, jurors, and Alden attempt to justify themselves, provide explanations, but ultimately prove unsuccessful, fail in the end. The pair ultimately departed the match, left the game. Sarah examines the party roster group window. Finding it peculiar that her comrades logged off, disconnected, inquired if they perished. Kay fabricates a reason that they had an urgent matter to resolve. Thus they disconnected. Sarah inquires why he failed to inform, and the protagonist instructs her to question upon reconnection. But he fully grasped that they would remain disconnected. The bowman inquires if retreat is advisable now, and Kong concurs, stating the mission requires a collective. Kong believes now that his objective is achieved. He will resume concentrating on his professional endeavors. But she expresses disappointment at missing the record, since she is no longer permitted to participate in the game. Kong contemplates her words as Xiao prepares for departure. The protagonist requests her to remain momentarily patiently. He states, since they both currently present there together, they should endeavor to vanquish the formidable adversary. Kong proposes they overcome the ultimate foe together. With a sorrowful expression, he conveys comprehension, understanding. Because recalling his history must be truly challenging, he desires to bestow upon Xia a lasting impression. She expresses a lack of complete understanding clarity, and inquires if his desire is to triumph alongside her presence, while Kong affirms validates his relocation. But when he comprehends, understands it, she already stood at the dungeon entrance awaiting him, which startles him abruptly. The portal starts closing, and the protagonist sprints to enter in time. He is alleviated because he barely made it inside, and Xia inquires, questions, wonders if victory over the adversary is possible for them both together. The protagonist states that if the foe is a stone golem only, victory is possible, and with his presence there with him, there will not be any difficulties, complications, problems. Smiling, he proudly declares this dungeon is effortless for him, quite easy. During his period as Bart's, during his time under Bart, a champion had already conquered Deborah Dungeon over 100 times, attaining the level of an expert, a professional. The hero believes he can assist while gaining experience leveling, and Xia inquires why nothing has materialized yet appeared. Kong sits, relaxes, and states that with patience they wait. It will manifest, shortly emerge, soon appear. Believing stone golems naturally blend in camouflaging themselves. Sudden sound beneath, protagonist grabs, party's notice. Small rodent, tiny hamster captures Zai's fascination. Kong believes hamsters remain near rock giants golems, while prodding, nudging the little creature animal. He surmises this indicates a golem close proximity, and requests hamster reveal the boss location whereabouts. Intense force dominates atmosphere, surroundings, environment. Earth trembles, moves, zero requests, Xia retreat, withdraw. Golem materializes mid-air, slowly, solidifying, forming, finalizing its emergence preparation readiness, declaring itself level 60 enormous rock golem giant. Xia, shocked, astonished, believes victory impossible, unlikely. But Kong reassures, advises adhere to the strategy. He initiates combat charges towards a monster. Xia readies bow, promises, provides covering fire support. Launching arrow strikes Golem's limb extremity, which angers, provokes it, causing it to assault her. Kong advances, sword intends to deliver a strike, and redirects Golem's focus attention towards himself. As it rotates, its cranium completely full circle. He strikes with full force, inflicting merely 15 points of damage, injuring his own hand more severely than the adversary itself. The stone behemoth decides to initiate its offensive, but the protagonist successfully evades the assault. He questions his physical prowess mid-jump in midair, discovering that his attributes are inferior to expectations. He understands that to vanquish a golem creature requires ascending to the apex, its summit, its highest point. While contemplating his course of action, his next move, he observes Xai's projectile having a brilliant epiphany. The colossal being attacks again, but hero sidesteps, Cad requests Sia to maintain distant arrow fire. At the golem's joints, she acknowledges and confirms compliance, then commences inflicting harm to various areas on the enemy. The monstrous entity stands erect before the combatant, and Kong utilizes the moment to imbibe a restorative elixir. After consuming the revitalizing liquid, the potion, he declares that his route is now prepared clear. Sprinting forth and scaling the gigantic stone creature, Kong understands every golem possesses a central vulnerability, a core weakness, and the stone golem frailty as a mighty protector is its crown, thus delivering a pinpoint strike to the adversary. Wukong believed all was concluded finished and contemplated proceeding to the prize chamber. Something appears peculiar, unusual on the enemy's head. He subsequently loses equilibrium and tumbles from the golem summit. Being rescued by Sia, who inquires about his well-being, Kong expresses gratitude thanks to her, and she states she will manage the foe for him, so he should conceal himself briefly to recuperate. Kong fails to comprehend the recommendation, because he assumes they nearly vanquished it. When he discerns the golem was in an intense, frantic state, entering a furious Kongball raging mode, the labyrinth overseer underwent an astounding metamorphosis and commences to assault our champion relentlessly. He would have never foreseen this occurring while battling. He muses he was approaching the dungeon too earnestly, having conquered it over a century of times, so there should be no justification for this event incident. Nearing defeat, Kong ponders wonders. If due to witnessing this assault strategy for the first time, he reminisces about his time as Bartz, but returns to present. The protagonist champion was no longer Bartz. Prostrate on the earth ground floor, Kong practically anticipated his demise as the automaton neared, but abruptly a precise projectile strikes the behemoth's rear. Kong is astonished it was Sia who had persevered. She tugs Kong, stating due to their diminished vitality, they must conceal themselves and request the warrior to flee. The automaton's ominous glare scans the area obscured by a stone. Sia confirms she has inspected the egress. It remains sealed shut. Thus, the sole escape route involves vanquishing the adversary. She alleges she attempted to strike the nucleus the hero targeted, but it proved unsuccessful, ineffective, futile. Kong was oblivious to the circumstances situation. He declares they are incapable of shattering it, breaking it, and encountering this for the very first time instance could indicate a concealed sequence activated under specific criteria. Kong states any action exceeds their present capabilities levels and suggests researching a method to be struck, minimizing potential agony, enduring minimal discomfort. But Sheila refuses this notion idea. While Kong attempted to persuade her, they were disoriented. She ignores him and states with a grin, a smile, that if he is unaware, they must discover. And even in failure, embracing the trial is preferable. Kong attempts to clarify the level disparity to Sia, but she suggests combining their levels together. They total 80. The protagonist asserts this illogical, and Sia insists on collaboration to discover a solution. She rushes towards combat and instructs him to follow, because she will await him in his quarters, his room. Kang's sibling heard he relinquished, he surrendered. He cautions their mother is weeping, is sorrowful, and inquires about the repercussions of such actions, unexpectedly stooping beside him, crouching down low. The sibling inquires if Kong recalls their youth, and the boy vanquished the aggressors, the tormentors. He states that back then he was larger, stronger. Thus they were powerless, unable to act. But this was no longer true, currently different. The sibling states Kong is in dire straits, dreadful, claiming he is academically challenged, unskilled, weak in studies, and that his sole skill is amusement, recreation, play. Kong then rises from the mattress bed, angrily inquiring about the intended message, implication, meaning. His sibling instructs him to observe surrounding individuals nearby. He is unaware of the current events happening, but requests informing a trusted confidant, someone reliable. Kong was agitated, annoyed by the remarked statements, but his sibling concludes while exiting the chamber that numerous issues he cannot manage solo independently, and finishes requesting Kong to exit and dine consume. because their mother prepared a hearty, stew-thick soup, and they will be anticipating a sudden, strong breeze wind gust. A powerful, forceful assault is initiated launched, striking the golem, directly inflicting substantial harm damage. But ultimately, Sia reached her utmost limit potential. The golem then delivers a potentially lethal blow towards her. But Kong rescues her, making the golem miss its assault. Xia feels gratitude for the rescue. The hero thanks her for the delay. He declares that he has completely regained his health and vigor. Concurring with Xia, since they will perish regardless, they should at the very least engage in combat. Kong confirms that it is now victory or defeat, and the golem approaches them with its enormous hand. Kong becomes filled with power and unleashes an assault, severing the boss digit. Then he evades an assault, believing it was successful. Kong contemplates that the pickaxe might be its vulnerability, because as indicated by the system itself. The pickaxe possesses 0 offensive capability. He executes another attack, but now it's ineffective. Wondering if it is a glitch yet, he is convinced it is not, and questions the requirement to inflict harm with the implement. Xia cautions the hero to gaze upwards, look above. An assault from the boss was imminent, about to strike. Suddenly, azure lines materialize, become visible on the golem limb, and Kong suddenly recollects, remembers. His mentor had explained that spheres comprised various, diverse, distinct materials merged, amalgamated together, and that even if they unify into a single entity, due to immense pressure there remain interstices among components. If he can accurately, precisely strike those openings, he can extract something truly remarkable, phenomenal. The pickaxe emanates strong cerulean beams, and the protagonist strikes golem with forceful impact blow, causing the antagonist arm to detonate, burst asunder. Filled with pride, self-satisfaction, hero declares success achieved. He located vulnerability, weakness, point, greatly agitated, angered. A creature beast attempts to apprehend, seize Kong, but the excavation skill ability is utilized, demolishing, obliterating another appendage extremity of the enemy, causing golem to bellow, shriek in fury and hopelessness. The notification system alerts of successful extraction mining, and Sheila watches from a remote distance, deeming it all quite astonishing, unbelievable, remarkable. For he conquered a boss with crafting skill ability. Following those onslaughts, assault attacks, the automaton was incapacitated due to frame damage. Considering this, Kong positions his tool against beast, concluding what he had initiated began. Ultimately, finally, at last, the program announces Sia and Zig's team triumphed over Enraged. Massive rocky automaton, the champion, had not previously noticed, because it required significant concentration, attention, focus. The line ability can be utilized for extraction anyway. He is elated he successfully hunted the leader chief boss. Xiao leaps upon Kong and asks how he vanquished the overlord with a crafting skill ability. The protagonist states it's a professional classified secret. She persists, she genuinely desires to truly know, as they are teleported elsewhere, way out. He declares he cannot easily divulge it. Thus they finish the labyrinth maze dungeon, amid peculiar formations with cylinders holding green fluids. Our protagonist appears. Xia inquires what location this is, where they're located, and Kong says it is the prize chamber, or at the very least, it should be. Xia hypothesizes they're in a monster creation location. The protagonist then asks if they are within the rumored production facility area of Deborah Dungeon. Kong believes it's his initial visit, and Sia gets his attention because she located chest. The protagonist becomes elated, believing it a reward chamber. Xia discovers eagle spectacles within the treasure chest, and it improves her aiming precision, scope, reach, and agility, dexterity skill. Kong confirms it's an uncommon object request display, but she refuses, declaring it belongs to her. Ultimately, the protagonist concedes because he found another chest, lifting it upwards with great excitement, enthusiasm. But upon opening, it contained a mundane, ordinary artifact. The sorcerer's gloves augment defense magic power by 3, and the protagonist thinks it's preferable to having nothing. The subsequent item discovered was the Guardian's blueprint plan. Upon finishing the blueprint schematic diagram, the protagonist will acquire the skill to forge dark iron that the sorceress attempted to fabricate. Kong becomes enthusiastic about constructing an automaton, but observing the fabrication requirements necessities. He faces reality and abandons the idea. The final object within the container was Carwin's guidebook. The protagonist discovers records left by Deborah's vanquisher. A blacksmith, reading it, learns the technique's grain arm break. The grain technique prerequisites were already fulfilled by Kong, while arm break relied solely on skill, expertise, ability. In the initial technique to be unlocked accessed, Kong is astonished he can employ the grain technique. He immediately commences perusing the guidebook, but comprehends not its intended purpose utilization. However, the protagonist's tale intertwines with Kang's narrative. Having vanquished the artificial construct golem in a similar identical fashion manner, the champion enhanced his perception of particles and substances, and fashioned a tool device to amplify it further. While he practiced the particle skill ability, he attained the power to obliterate paddles and weaponry, mastering another technique, arm break. Kong peruses this, deeming it astonishing remarkable. The book's hero protagonist proceeds onward, stating his conflict with Deborah remains unresolved, unfinished, and she shall return someday, commanding a formidable force. This explains his preservation of the sorceress lair, leaving it undisturbed, unaltered in its current state. The hero champion aspires, desires, hopes, wishes. His successors may learn to combat the Enchantress Legion. Kong, captivated by the chronicle account, found it intriguing that a metalworker learned Carwin's aptitude. Saya inquires if Kong disliked his compensation remuneration, but he confirms he indeed did. It truly happened. He was thrilled, exhilarated, having acquired a concealed aptitude. Saya then beckons Kong to exit outside to depart. Sia remarks she endured a prolonged absence from the heavens, and Kong states a full day elapsed within the game world, and 8 hours transpired in actual reality. She then declares she must depart immediately, instantly. And Kong hesitates, stammers, desiring to utter something to her. Sia then takes charge, inquires about Kang's age, who upon responding 20 verifies she is his age equal. Sia beams requests from that point onward. They establish friendship, her hand offered to the protagonist. She wonders if he will not acknowledge her greeting, and they finally clasp hands, shake in agreement. Sia informs she added him on online platforms and will connect once the trial assessment concludes. Kong, perplexed, bewildered, inquires about her prior statement utterance, and she clarifies she must undertake certain examinations, so she desired to complete the level challenge beforehand, and concludes stating her return in a fortnight, 2 weeks. After listening to this entire revelation account, Kang's fabricated tale about her disintegrates, crumbles, and Sia strikes Kong, questioning his distress, agitation, a blow fracturing our protagonist's spinal column, neck. Sia remarks if witnessed, observed by someone, they would believe their separation was permanent. But she clarifies, emphasizes it will only be a fortnight. A notification declares Zig's demise and Sia's culpability, which causes her desperation, frantic state of mind. Kong inquires about retrieving his belongings, possessions, but he despairs, observing his name highlighted crimson. Conversely, the protagonist urges her to compose herself. Sag wonders about consequences if effect persists, and Kong requests her to prioritize retrieving his items. Someone proclaims a delivery arrival at his residence. Kong disconnects, exits from the virtual reality game. He reflects it's been a week since the stone golem pursuit. Since then, he has refined his ability skills, and his crafting, mending skills, utilizing grain materials, maintained a perfect, flawless achievement record. Additionally, the apparatus nature greatly, remarkably enhanced, improved, and subsequently, in another 7 days week period, he was already a renowned, celebrated blacksmith in Baldwin. In his latest pod, Kong validated that game felt much more authentic, genuine than ever previously experienced. Abruptly, something grabbed his awareness concentration focus. There were countless patrons requesting item restoration repairs. But Kong informed the gamers he had a task duty, so he would be unable to perform labor work. This caused the gamers to begin an uproar disturbance, because each desired at minimum their gear mended fixed. A fair-haired person then neared the disarray chaos mayhem, stating that a monarch slime materialized on the IRC fields, and remarked he needed to depart there promptly instantly. The nearby gamers became intrigued by the circumstance event, since it was an exceptionally uncommon, incredibly rare monster enemy. Swiftly everybody departed towards the flatland grassland, leaving solely just Kong and the fair-haired individual at the spot. Kong pondered that the monarch slime did not emerge in these flatlands. The fair-haired woman subsequently states they can converse peacefully, cautioning that he arrived for a visit to see him. Inside the lecture hall, our hero learns in everyday attire. He rapidly jots notes in his pad as someone observes him, deeming his velocity extraordinary, remarkable, exceptional. 30 days elapsed, and Sparks was compromised, breached, infiltrated. Despite renown, he uncovered 0 clues about the wrongdoer, utilizing sophisticated advanced state-of-the-art apparatus. Progressing was effortless, but now Kong required different tactics. Discovering, therefore, the Northern Arc trade path commerce route, Kong considers, ponders, reflects. Besides achieving success clearing the pathway passage route, a game-level alteration, shift modification will transpire. He becomes enthusiastic envisioning these tasks, intrigue, engagement. A current assignment was issued by Barkus, sovereign ruler monarch. It entails dispatching a group to forge a trade route commerce path with the Nosark nation realm territory land. The task was requested by King Himsel himself personally. Consequently, rumors circulate anticipating substantial compensation rewards. Nosark is the dwarves' homeland origin birthplace who founded blacksmiths, and this presents a chance the protagonist cannot squander. He surmises the issue is his assigned ranking, and standing within the established hierarchy is inadequate, insufficient. While contemplating, pondering, reflecting, he startles the previous man with his prowess once more. Someone suggests introductions, identifying themselves as Dylan, leader of the Golden Rush Trading Company Walden Division. Dylan clarifies his presence is to enlist recruit Kong, and promises ensures to provide him excellent treatment. Kong nonetheless, was deeply contemplating the current situation predicament. Dylan inquires if the hero failed to comprehend him, and he requested a repetition restatement. The division head subsequently becomes agitated, anxious, sensing he is being deliberately disregarded. Kong cautions he lacks interest in alliances associations, and Dylan assumes the smith is unaware of his organization. But Kong cautions he possesses prior knowledge of it, and that it perpetually consistently ranks in second position. This agitates Dylan, who states second place is remarkable impressive. He laments their unfortunate second place position, and assures imminent return to first top leading. Reiterating proposal, he lists further advantages benefits, but the protagonist declines Dylan, surprised by refusal. Kong clarifies that guild membership notwithstanding, he would remain a blacksmith subject to exploitation abuse. The protagonist inquires about potential different treatment. Dylan considers the statement words spoken, and suggests Kong become an associate affiliate member. He explains this is typically reserved only for high-level users. Explaining website registration is adequate enough, and maintain periodic communication contact with Dylan, without formal member obligations, responsibilities, duties, and each service rendered will be rewarded. If Kong enjoys the guild, he may join otherwise. He retains the prerogative to depart, withdraw. After 6 months, the protagonist considers the offer. It presented a truly challenging, difficult decision to make, but ultimately, he consents to agrees with the terms. However, he requests Dylan to perform a reciprocal favor, which sparks his intrigue and fascination. Amidst the woodland, the dense forestry, a carriage traverses. Some remarks are uttered. Inquiries arise regarding engaging a novice as an associate. Dylan replies, "It will be a valuable learning opportunity." The supervisor mentions seeing someone resembling our protagonist. This player was known as Jirium, the server's top player, the ultimate expert whose items command millions in trade. The speaker will monitor the progression, the unfolding events, and inquires about a certain sum of gold that vanished. Dylan comprehends the situation, the matter at hand, and states he withdrew 90,000 in gold currency because the metalworker requested alternative compensation. A notice displayed the exploration group's accepted individuals. Numerous individuals congregated to observe and examine it, as did Kong, featured prominently on the poster. The hero's player name was clearly displayed written, causing Kong to experience elation, great happiness. But he realizes time is a constraint, a limiting factor. The guilds offered gold as a participation reward incentive, contemplating if the vendor would request something peculiar, unusual from him later. He then elongates limbs and readies for the task. East of Baldwin lies Joe's bread establishment. Tempest of Guilford, deemed mightiest of the hired soldiers, was present awaiting in line at the bakery. The server summons the following patron, and Tempest proceeds to retrieve his purchase. However, he confronts a harsh truth, discovering his honey-baked goods depleted. The clerk elucidates, clarifies, explains the situation, that the individual behind him just acquired all. The mercenary captain then pivots angrily, furiously, seizing the neckline of the person in front, reprimanding the man for procuring the entire stock. This individual was Kong, the metalworker who ruined his blade. Recognizing it was the cunning smith who tricked him, Kong is startled, appearing to remember Tempest, but actually he forgets who that is and inquires his name. This leaves Tempest utterly bewildered, discombobulated, becoming increasingly agitated, labeling him a villain. Reminding Kong he destroyed his prized possession. He then attacks the hero, who evades skillfully. Abruptly, Mr. Guilford concludes his gaming session, leaving Kong perplexed by his sudden vanishing. The mercenary group members are equally bewildered, inquiring about their commander whereabouts location. Tempest awakens in his resident's home dwelling, receiving reprimand from his spouse for undone chores. He asserts no reason existed to disconnect the electricity, and she becomes further exasperated, angered. The gentleman requests his wife to not contour his arm. Leg ensnared, he implores her for mercy, leniency. In another chamber, his offspring heard paternal cries, becoming distressed, anxious, worried. She requested quiet for uninterrupted studying. She attempts to regain composure, serenity, planning to maintain tranquility for one more week. And the Barkis Castle portal exploration commences. A gentleman summons his associate to observe something. Present were the Red Tiger mercenary group soldiers. The men contemplated whether the task would be too simple now. The hired soldier requested every member of his company diligently search, locate the metalworker, the blacksmith. He deduced, based on provisions acquired, the food bought. He must also be a participant in the competition. A female loudly exclaimed, shouted, yelled, offering essential mission items at a reduced cost cheaply, grabbing the protagonist's hero's attention focus. She inquired if he had encountered a creature attack while traveling, and as he prepared to respond to answer, she confirmed, undoubtedly, yes, absolutely, certainly, stating that in that moment, at that time then, he likely desired a survival technique, a life-saving skill, prompting the protagonist to concur with slight uncertainty, mistrust. She subsequently announced. She offered a magical ring enabling teleportation travel instantly for merely only just 10,000 gold pieces coins. Kane became incredibly thrilled upon hearing the cost value, yet still considered 10,000 a significant sum of money, a fortune. He ponders if it's truly necessary, required, essential, and understands his physique, reacted instinctively, purchased it. The lady expresses gratitude, thanks him. He considers reselling it for a financial gain, a profit. However, upon inspection, examination, scrutiny, he comprehends, understands, realizes something important. It was a teleportation device, self-destructing after single usage. The lady remarks today's revenue was exceptional, outstanding, as anticipated numerous gullible individuals in Baldwin. Thus, generating income is effortless, simple, easy. Kong moves toward the lady, the female, the woman, labeling her a fraudster with deceptive mirrors. She requests reimbursement, a refund, her money back. She inquires about the issue, the difficulty, the problem. Since the device possesses the guaranteed capability power, Kong accuses her of deception, not as promised pledged. The vendor states her appellation isn't fraudster deceiver. They engage in a dispute, a quarrel, and a guard intervenes. They will be imminently departing, leaving soon. They should cease conflict, prepare for departure readiness. Kong attempts to caution about the deceiver, the con artist, but he is forcefully thrown to the earth, the ground. While the lady whispers some phrases, words to the guard, she relinquishes, surrenders some currency, cash money. Bribing him, the guard consents to join this dishonest plot, aiming his firearm weapon at Kong and charging him with pilfering, stealing from the lady woman. The protagonist attempts to clarify she robbed him, but the guard instructs him to be silent, quiet, hush, requesting him to apologize and, as penalty consequence, Kong must haul tow his wagon. He was astonished by injustice. The trader begins to chuckle derisively in the backdrop. The journey, the expedition, then begins. And our protagonist was compelled to drag the deceiver carriage. On the periphery, the outskirts of the procession, the journey, a cloaked figure with an eagle on his appendage scheming. He positions a message, a note in the eagle talon claw, which takes flight, departs swiftly, promptly, immediately, going to the Broden Kingdom Royal Treasury, Coffers Vault. The eagle concludes, completes, finalizes its task, duty, service. This location ideal, perfect for tent setup. The lady suggests he maintain this conduct always, requesting him to prepare everything completely. But one disconnects, and Kong begins weeping, sobbing, causing him to yell, scream in frustration at his predicament, while consuming food dining. He believes he is enduring hardship after this con artist capture, and something grabs his attention focus. A gentleman states he heard he excels at repairs in Baldwin, requesting him to mend a piece of equipment apparatus for him. Kong finds it unexpected, out of the blue, abruptly. The gentleman inquires if he lacks confidence in his skills, while suspecting he will be taken to his superior commander. Kong finds it bothersome, irritating while he was dining, but he utilizes his grain expertise after the mending, and the soldier's weapon was flawless, impeccable, while slumbering, resting in a hammock. The members observe, watch his handiwork, craftsmanship, remarking, stating that he is highly skilled, proficient. It's unbelievable he ruined the commander's blade weapon. Kong requests his departure after task completion, because he is presently engrossed in reading a book. Labeled elderly, the gentleman becomes irate at the remark, the comment, and begins berating the metal worker for damaging the blade, the weapon, that had been previously mended, fixed, repaired. Kong inquires about his statement, having just complimented him. He declares he is not a senior citizen. If Kong disobeys, defies him, he will assault him physically. This triggers Kong to remember something. He wondered if they were the older gentleman from the bread shop, the bakery, and if their behavior stems from his pastry purchase, his biscuit acquisition. The gentleman states, declares, asserts the crimson feline would never antagonize him over a trivial matter, a trifle. Yet that was precisely their current action, their present conduct. However, the protagonist states it is inconsequential, unimportant, irrelevant, and desiring a target for his frustration, his pent-up anger. He challenges him to a physical altercation, to a fight as anticipated, foreseen. The hero was effortlessly overpowered, easily defeated, subdued, being escorted to the commander of the hired soldiers, the mercenary captain. Kong exclaims that creating alliances constitutes unfair play, is cheating. And the mercenary chief declares that a genuine apology, a sincere remorse. He will disregard issues, but the protagonist instructs him to visit that location, because he possessed the entitlement to acquire the crackers. Temper declares he is not discussing the baked snacks, and Kong inquires what it is, since he never wronged anybody, which causes the commander to become enraged, infuriated. He then contemplates that this strategy will prove ineffective, liberating the hero, leaving him feeling disoriented, bewildered. But abruptly, unexpectedly, Tempest initiated combat with Kong, delivering a mighty strike, detonating the surroundings nearby. The protagonist believes this event impossible, unbelievable. The mercenary captain possessed a special event object, with an offensive capability strength of 1 single unit, designated, named entitled the Affectionate Rod. Tempest then declares he will educate our lead proper etiquette, announcing it is time for disciplinary instruction guidance. He unleashes another forceful assault, severing the vicinity. Kong confronts him, stating this is no lesson instruction. This is merely unleashing rage upon someone while talking. A forceful hit strikes him squarely, causing his defeat upon the ground. The mercenary commander inquires if that represents his full capacity, and subsequently declares a stipulation a requirement if he makes contact. He will permit him to depart retreat onto the earth. The protagonist labels him an obstinate old individual. Kong asserts. The hired soldier must presume he will remain untouched by such as him, observing that onlookers gaze with disdain scorn. He initiates the confrontation with Tempest. They trade numerous strikes, and the protagonist is forced backward. Tempest contemplates that for a novice beginner, he is competent, skilled, adept. Nonetheless, however, his aptitude is insufficient to conquer the level discrepancy. The love stick collides impacts with Kang's blade, but the protagonist yells, shouts, bellows in rage, and dismantles the weapon belonging to the mercenary commander. Arm break is an ability that demolishes ruins, ores, or weaponry, focusing on the vulnerabilities, the flaws in the substance material. The essential requirement is to develop the grain skill to level 7. The protagonist believes today is the opportune moment. His eyes gleam. He gazes intently, observes the system, and discovers that the grain skill has progressed to rank 7. Now he can finally acquire the arm-breaking technique. He subsequently chooses to evaluate the new ability against the commander of the hired soldiers, shattering his armament and astonishing him greatly. The protagonist believes, although he is a high-ranking individual, it must be his initial encounter with such a technique. He hoists him onto his shoulder, employing another ability, the headbutt maneuver, which inadvertently causes him to kiss the mercenary on the lips, leaving all onlookers completely and utterly astounded. The mercenary captain declares he will eliminate the hero, and Kong reflects that was his very first kiss. All the squad members restrain their leader firmly as he attempts to pursue after Kong relentlessly, and one of the hired soldiers draws near cautiously, presenting Kong with a potent elixir as a present. The individual is quite astonished that the protagonist landed a blow on their commander, and inquires about the specific skill used. He remarks it's his initial observation of a weapon-destroying skill. Kong states he remains silent, unable to disclose information. The gentleman inquires about Kang's guild affiliation membership and proposes Kong a position within the mercenary organization. Kong deems the offer audacious after the prior assault beating. The man admits their actions lacked maturity, were childish. But the protagonist hero shattered the commander's blade and fled. Kong, appearing puzzled, bewildered, perplexed, declares he has never damaged a weapon during restoration mints until currently, but he recollects the occurrence event. He had indeed fractured the mercenary captain's sword weapon. They clasp hands, signifying the matter now resolved, settled even. Addressing the man as elder, sibling brother, Tempest inquires questions, asks about Kang's right to address his comrade with familiarity, closeness, referring to him in turn as a youngster child. Kong expresses remorse, regrets for the restoration mishap. Tempest becomes enraged, infuriated, stating that is not issue, unleashing a thunderous roar bellow while consuming soup broth. An individual remark states, it is dreadful, awful. His companion advises him to adjust settings, reduce the taste flavor, because lacking opposition, adversaries resistance items. They must consume this. The vendor is behind the man, remarking they have exhausted their provision supplies. She subsequently presents a gilded fruit to the gentleman, and they are astonished it's incredibly valuable, priceless. She states she's vending it for a mere 1,000 gold coins, and the gentleman offered to purchase multiple, queuing up in line to determine who transacts first. Later, she brags about obtaining significant profit that day, and Kong inquires if she would go that extent for wealth. Deeming her ruthless, Lydia states all occurs for riches, and one should prioritize their possessions and finances. She requests Kong to handle the remaining tasks, and upon his completion of that specific assignment, she will cease issuing him further directives commands. The protagonist is perplexed by her monetary obsession. While applying gold paint to a piece of fruit and apple, he rejoices at completing his task and speaks to the fruit, declaring it will be his friend until his demise passing. Suddenly, Surek moves closer in the direction of Kong. Striking the fruit in the protagonist's hand, he perceives the assault. Tempest declares they are under siege, being ambushed, and requests the combatants adopt guarded stances positions. Numerous individuals of the soldier for hire unit were assaulted, and that prior individual materializes mid-flight in the air. Swiftly, the mercenary captain bisects him, divides him in two. But it was not his genuine physical form, his actual body. It was a player's expiring demise consequence after effect. A sharp edge then nears Tempest's throat his neckline, but Kong utilizes his limb-shattering ability and shields and protects, stating the elder gentleman is indebted to him is in his debt. Tempest in response states the assault would not even graze him, but he contemplates the assassin's concealment is undetectable by him. Tempest aims his armament at the assassin and inquires his identity. The gentleman grins, smiles, and utters speaks. He is the contract killer granted the elite top-ranking title. The individual who directs the Dark Crescent Moon. All present at the scene appear to recognize him, because it is a renowned, well-known contracting organization. The assassin then confirms he is indeed Kira. The reconnaissance group assault objective is then unveiled. Participants must conquer the contract killer meddling attempts and arrive at the northern archway. In turn, the trackers are astonished it was a monstrosity. That combat posture belonged to a hitman with no vulnerabilities, declaring that every single person would perish. But the murderer states he was not present to eliminate all. His aim was to detain everyone there in that location and acquire the Shadow Patriot designation. And provided that they surrendered, yielded, gave up, they could conclude that one tracker was unwilling to concede because they dedicated significant time to the assignment task, inquiring if they would forfeit their venture investment. The gentleman grins, stating he was mistaken. Instantly, the fellow receives a projectile arrow shot. Continuing, Kira replies he was not present to bargain haggle, as it was merely a required procedure, a mere formality. At that juncture, they were encircled by his disciples' adherents, and if they did not abandon the mission objective assignment, they would expire. Guilford sensed their attendance proximity, but it wasn't numerous, therefore could be deception, trickery. Comprehending that one of his hired soldiers was behind, located at the rear, the gentleman provides guidance directions to the individual, making hand gestures, and as they prepared to enact implement strategy, Zig emerges and inquires what manner of killer he was, what type of assassin. Because if he were top-tier high ranking, he was high level. He should battle respectfully with honor. Labeling him a craven, a tense individual states that a stressed man says, Zig was merely fortunate when he demolished his armament when he destroyed weapon, so he shouldn't conduct himself in that manner that way. Issuing the command for his underlings to eliminate him, to kill him. A spell enchantment heads towards the lead character, main protagonist, but he winds up defending himself shortly thereafter, soon after. Numerous Kunis advance toward the hired fighters, the mercenaries. Guilford instructs the sorcerer who employs ice sorcery magic defense. Kira subsequently states to not allow any survivors to let anyone live. However, Guilford was positioned before him already in front, declaring that they would be obliterated, eradicated, completely destroyed, employing his frenzied capacity and assaulting the fellow his blade with sword. But he evades, dodges. Kara asserts that if he was slightly quicker, a bit faster, he would have triumphed. The system declared stats insufficient, so enraged state would be deactivated, disabled. The Hydra's blood potency was triggered, activated. Due to its power, all characteristics were halved, reduced. Zig is certain he is a brilliant mastermind. Just prior to the assault striking him, impacting, he swiftly accessed the inventory storage, equipping the chest armor possessing strong defense, at the expense of hindering his mobility movement, stating the ferocious tiger handled everything solo independently, so he should assist arriving at the location scene. Zig is astonished because they were failing losing. Shortly after, blood begins dripping from his mouth lips, and the system announces Hydra's blood effect triggered activated. Hearing the terms, Zig remembers. It was a potential reward from Cadria dungeon boss, a potent toxin reducing health and attributes by half, inquiring if they tainted his morning coffee beverage. Simultaneously, a cloaked figure materializes. Guilford continued combating Kira. Witnessing his prowess, the man believed him to be on par, even conceded that his own offensives proved ineffective, proposed evacuating non-player characters due to disadvantage. Guilford commenced escape, but Kira pursued him relentlessly, the hero evading the cloaked individuals in shadows. Believed he had evaded every assault, every strike, but anticipated capture, thus seeking concealment hiding. That reaching the wooded area was imperative necessary. Concurrently, in the meantime, simultaneously, the female who pilfered from our hero was absconding. Kira was gathering possessions from his vanquished foes, instructed them to prepare for the pursuit team's return. It would chase them. He heard a rustle in the foliage. He inquired about it. A subordinate then materialized, reporting that the tracking squad had indeed returned and were advancing toward the canyon destination. The man was gratified, bisecting a tree with his weapon, declared their imminent departure for Canyon City. Meanwhile, the girl continued observing from the thicket, believing the crescent moon emblem signified high-ranking guild. Half the squad was already deceased, perished, eliminated, and if they were assaulted, ambushed, attacked again, it would result in another loss. She should alert the recon team. The young lady is immobilized, frozen, petrified, observing a colossal creature approaching her, advancing. Desperate, she flees, inquiring why such a beast was present there. Then the wagon strikes a rock boulder stone. Consequently, the girl tumbles with a horrified expression. Monster approaches her alive, retrospect emerges, appears, manifests. Acquiring funds, believing she could afford, make payment, settle. Then she receives a communication from her paternal figure. Examining her device, she sees the medical bill notification, stating it was fine because finances always return eventually. In the current moment, presently now, the girl states she toiled diligently, saving funds for the task, commencing to hurl rocks at the monstrous being creature, demanding it to perish, expire, cease existing. Then a detonation occurs, and the beast simply vanishes, dissipates. Zay materializes, stating he finally apprehended, captured it, glancing, looking towards the side. The main character observes the lady, inquiring her presence. 30 minutes previously earlier, two cloaked figures sought the source of sound noise. They proceeded toward the wooded area forest. Meanwhile, Zig concealed himself amidst the trees, claiming he had finally apprehended them, but required the potent advanced remedy antidote first. Simultaneously, a creature emerged behind him. The system alerted it was a golden yellow ogre, an uncommon beast found solely in the mountains. Assailing Zig, the youth noted its significant attack strength. Avoiding confrontation was deemed advisable, recommended, regardless of the assault force power strength. Ineffective if connection not made, missed. Lacerating the creature, however, but yet it remained alive, living, breathing. The hero initiated a series of onslaught attacks. Returning to the present time now, Zig consumed a potion, restoring all condition status. Incredulous, the lady questioned his ogre victory defeat, confirming Zig inquiries questions. If she was unable to see that symbol emblem, that was only obtainable after conquering, vanquishing it. Nevertheless, she remains unconvinced because that man was merely a blacksmith, a metalworker. But it had proven successful, effective, it had worked. Because she was apprehensive about confronting that beast alone solo, instructing the main character to commence working, begin his tasks. Because he desired to finish some assignments tasks as well too, stating he possessed a strategy to accomplish the crescent moon objective. A short while afterwards, subsequently later, One mercenary informs Guilford they observed located a bridge a crossing. So they had nearly arrived, almost reached their destination. However, for their leader, the commander, it was not yet the opportune moment. He unsheathed his blade, his sword, nearly striking one cloaked figure, one hooded individual. Kira, in response, in turn then, exclaims that it was astonishing, remarkable, unbelievable, because he believed he had fully concealed his presence as being there. Inquiring how Guilford was aware, had knowledge, the captain states it was the wisdom of an adult, a grown-up. Calling him juvenile, enraging, infuriating Kira, launching numerous incantations at the soldiers. However, Guilford successfully parries every attack, signaling one of his comrades, companions, allies. As he prepared to utilize his glacial magic, the man is beheaded by a cloaked figure. Enraging Guilford, who pursues, chases after Kira, the leader defeated upon the earth ground. Kira remarks his power was less than his renown. Observing something approaching, heading his direction, Kira inquires what that is. Then Zig arrives with a cart, stating that it was a present offering gift. Then Kira retrieves his blade dagger knife, lacerating the wagon carriage cart, saying Ziggen luckily fled, but returned solo alone, inquiring if the youth desired to perish die. Noticing his fragrant attire, clothing, garments, the man questions the origin of that aroma scent. The main character, hero, protagonist, in response, states it is a parting present before the massacre. The female thief displayed the barrels upon the cart to Zig, explaining she acquired them due to dwarven fondness, affection, demonstrating the substance's potency, power, strength to the hero, inquiring if launching and igniting it upon Kira was possible, potentially resulting in his ultimate demise, defeat. Even a high-ranking individual would certainly perish, die. She asked if it wasn't a sufficient, adequate strategy plan, but the young man questioned, inquired the fate of the remaining assassins, killers. The girl suggested detonating them alongside with Kira too. However, maintaining group cohesion was improbable, impossible. Yet that was a non-issue, not a problem, resolvable by eliminating, vanquishing the commander, the lead. She inquired about alternative courses of action plans, ideas. Zig requested a moment of contemplation, thought, stating the cloaked figures would conceal themselves somewhere first. Essentially, they should preemptively locate their hiding spots, visit their potential concealment locations beforehand initially. Returning to the current time frame, the present now, the girl confirmed Zig's strategy had been successful, effective. Meanwhile, the main character observed cloaked individuals descend, feeling joyful, delighted because his plan truly succeeded. The more awareness of his capability, power, potential grew, the greater his fondness, appreciation for it became stronger, suggesting further investigation after the task assignment. Then, amidst the inferno, someone inquired about the boy's destination. It was Kira, progressing toward the lead character hero, evading the assault. Ziga, astonished by Kira's survival, declaring that every high-ranking individual was a formidable being. Kira, in response, retorted, countered in turn, vowed to inflict regret, now truly enraged, infuriated. Meanwhile, Guilford remained situated upon the overpass, claiming ignorance, unaware of the detonation's cause, origin. But owing to that fortunate event, he survived, lived on, cautioning, advising they escape before the lunar crescent reappears. Then a female instructs the commander to traverse the bridge. Prior to the arrival of the new moon crescent arrival, Guilford inquires if she was responsible for the blasts. The young lady affirms, acknowledges it was her doing. And a metalworker named Zig, a blacksmith, contributed, aided. A hired soldier cautioned, advised him to depart, leave. But the leader desired to remain, await the hero protagonist, noting that the metalworker rescued him 2 times twice, and he did not intend to be indebted, obligated. Meanwhile, Zig utilizes his limb-breaking talent skill. Kira, subsequently, then in turn, inquired if the protagonist believed he could oppose him, defy. With mere tricks, Zig states he couldn't even rise, stand, due to his blaze, Inferno wounds, injuries. And instantly he receives an onslaught attack. The man cautioned it was a skill called Phantom Assault, questioning if the boy would evade these futile attacks, stating he would pulverize, crush him completely. Then Zig signals Kira, asks if they possessed more explosives. Looking back, he observes the protagonist escaping, fleeing. remarking he had truly been deceived, tricked, fooled. Nearing the boy, Kira locates a cavern, vowing to eliminate him upon entering the grotto cave. Multiple projectiles head toward him approach. It was merely a diversion because instantly, Zig emerges striking Kira yet. It was an illusionary tactic summoning a replica, assaulting the lead character from the rear, remarking the youth was quite powerful. But it was completely finished for him. When he gazes at his foot, he observes a vine entangled around it. Zig in turn states no creatures in that cavern, but a plant was intriguing, fascinating. That was a vine ensnaring everything, and would vanish after a confinement period duration. The hero says Kira should have observed his step placement, making the man angered, questioning actions in 10 seconds. But the youth mentions needing no special skill talent, because he could have slain a golem with that tool alone. The man chuckles because his hidden weapon was that precisely. Then the protagonist advances forward, telling him to observe if it was merely a pickaxe, and when he attempts to strike attack, he ultimately fails, misses the mark, claiming the youth couldn't strike a still object. For Ziggy, the gentleman wasn't his intended victim, he desired immediate assault, stating he obliterated that central point, the core, and shortly the cavern would crumble, disintegrate. The fellow states that was improbable, unfeasible, because it wouldn't fall with solely just that. Simultaneously, the grotto commences to quake, tremble, leaving Kira astonished, astounded, amazed, because he hadn't encountered such a power, hypothesizing it was possibly mental manipulation power. But he was merely a metalworker, a blacksmith. In essence, the cavern was genuinely, truly crumbling. Then he starts to abscond, flee, escape, however. He remained constrained by the vine on his foot ankle. The program notified the task had been unsuccessful because every one of the killers were deceased, and a punishment would be administered given. Returning to Guildford, one soldier of fortune requests dismissal because Ziggy ought to be perished deceased. Guildford in turn states that Zig would not perish easily amidst the mountains. The lead character emerges, revealing his continued survival alive. The hired soldiers are astonished, amazed, surprised, because he endured without significant harm, injury. However, Zig declares he would be deceased without that ring, because while inside the cavern grotto, he utilized it for rapid escape, swift exit, stating he still deemed the ring inadequate due to its cost value. But it nevertheless rescued him. The young lady is astonished, believing it was a futile object, worthless thing. But he still persevered and survived, confirming it was precisely as he declared. And it genuinely aided him, requesting the lad thank her, express gratitude. Guildford remarks on his remarkable feat of vanquishing Kira. Zig confirms his accomplishment, unlike himself, who merely spoke, thus enraging the man fellow. Then subsequently, the hero protagonist announces their departure for the Northern Arcs. Later, the hired soldiers observe a colossal, immense structure edifice, declaring the bargaining assembly was present there at that location. The platform announced the assignment was successfully executed. 28 of 80 adventurers lived. Those individuals received a reward. Then the portal opened, revealed itself. The platform announced Zig had obtained expertise and reputation, thus elevating his ranking status tier, and now he could fix maritime grade gear. And he had acquired a protective barrier from Monarch Barcus, a protective barrier that could deflect any assault. Daily, a gathering of people watched, observed Zig, remarking, stating, commenting that 30 days had passed since the character was generated. That character was controlled by a past player called Bartz, and since his creation, he had displayed impressive skill. He even conquered a colossal rock monster currently in the north. His group believed there was a strong likelihood chance that individual would introduce a fresh new occurrence. One man inquired why postpone the system upgrade. The other man stated the occurrence would bring novel alterations, and the upgrade timing would disorient the participants' players. The gentleman inquired if the leader found logic in that, because unlocking the colossal automaton form took 3 years, and he suspected a novice metalworker would trigger the occasion, inquiring if he would assume accountability. Then the supervisor confirmed if results were subpar, he would accept responsibility, expressing regrets for his tardiness. The other individual asked meaning of assuming responsibility. Mr. Chun stated it was precisely as he had uttered, noting that they would postpone the upgrade, the new version. But the man asked if a smith could initiate the happening. Then the chief stated that it was indeed a possibility and desired to incorporate further elements into the upgrade, requesting patience until its completion, its finalization. Shoving Notion's section inquired their thoughts on the matter, and if it surpassed the anticipated results performance, he would bear complete responsibility, total accountability. The other fellow noted developing all that would require 2 years. However, the supervisor declared majority of the task was finished. During his period of leave his time off absence, astonishing a man, he accomplished it solo independently. Suction declares it was exhilarating, thrilling, stimulating, since Arpedia would evolve in the forthcoming future. Returning to the main leading central character, the youth slumbered dreaming he apprehended the cybercriminal. Meanwhile, with repugnance, aversion, loathing, his sibling observed him re-entering the chamber. His parents inquire about his well-being condition. Then the sibling proclaims he gamed all night long and was presently slumbering, sleeping, napping. His mother becomes enraged because Zig claimed studying, but his father states it was a positive, beneficial good. Concept notion for the boy to act autonomously, independently. When he reflects on the bygone past times, there existed solely remorse, sorrow, regret. Then the mother inquires about Zig earning a livelihood living. The father says he would provide educational resources, materials, asserting he desired his happiness, contentment, joy. Because when the boy was struggling, combating, fighting, could not perform any action, do a single thing. So he believed it wiser to allow him his desires. Meanwhile, the lead character overheard everything in the background. Then his sibling mentioned he would skip the academy, making their mother enraged, infuriated, livid, saying he would not skip a bit later subsequently. The main character sat upon a sidewalk pavement curb, recalling what he had heard from his parents' conversation, saying that he and his folks worried over trivial matters. He was right, well, find a short while later. Zeke questioned what that occurrence was, because there was a rodent in his school lunch meal, leaving those nearby astonished, amazed, surprised. The protagonist retrieved his mobile phone cellular device, thinking he should share that image online digitally. A short time later, subsequently, a gentleman arrived in his classroom inquiring about Zeke. Meanwhile, in the meantime, concurrently, the pupil said the fellow was known for fighting since high school. Then the lad approached the lead character protagonist, asking if that was Zeke, yanking his head awake. But the youth remained drowsy, then received a blow. Later, a pupil inquired about Zig's condition, but the lad claimed he merely stumbled. The fellow questioned about hospital necessity. With bruised visage, Zig claimed wellness after everything. His academic existence became torment. That guy constantly sought him. Consequently, he detached himself from companions, becoming utterly secluded daily, it recurred. The lad confirmed he was genuinely doing that, but the other fellow claimed poor hearing, inquiring about his mutterings, his mumbled words. Then the lead character loudly yelled, questioning his own past actions, deeds. The assembly erupted in laughter, expressing their prior fright. Simultaneously, another individual arrived on the scene. That lad named Hyen, the council president esteemed. That guy Zig recalled excelled in everything, every subject. Hyen, addressing the lad's earlier inquiry question, offered to explain the rationale, the cause, confessing his actions motivated by fondness, affection. Returning present time, Zig requested they confront him. He would conquer them utilizing solely his capabilities. Suddenly, a document strikes, his face obstructing vision. Simultaneously, he collides with a gentleman, a male. The fellow inquired about a lack of remorse, regret. Expressing apologies, Zig is astonished, recognizing the individual before him, observing the protagonist's quietude, stillness, silence. The gentleman gripped his collar, questioning his attentiveness, hearing. Distressed, Zig inquired about the gentleman's presence there. The gentleman received a communication declaring his fortunate situation, requesting future carefulness, cautiousness, vigilance. Moments afterward, later, an individual discussed with the prior gentleman about the ARPIA game, noting the recent commencement of the Northern Arc. Consequently, kingdom and fortress funds were strained, limited, scarce. Initially in the beginning at first, they discussed the meager, paltry compensation amongst personnel workers. Inquiring about Young's anticipated reaction, reply, answer. Lacking alternatives, the gentleman consented, agreed, acquiesced. Following day, the lead character stood before structure. Believing that all would be satisfactory, well, all right. Nami no longer feared individuals or venturing outside. Remembering the prior evening night before, he contemplates he should become more powerful, stronger, thus increasing his physical, mental capabilities, fortitude. Entering the edifice, Zig attempts to vocalize something. As he gazes, observes the building interior inside. He witnesses numerous individuals stacked and massed together, growing frantic, distressed by that circumstance predicament. Departing the location, the youth states he was jobless, meaning he lacked funds capital to provide payment. Then the gentleman inquires if he was there to enroll register. Zig declines, stating he had entered the incorrect location. As he prepared to depart, leave the premises, he collides with somebody sometime afterwards. Subsequently, the main character was seated position resting, wondering if that assembly were the game mercenaries. Guilford inquires if lead character practices martial arts, but youth declines, stating he desired basic training. The man inquires about his presence for enrollment, but Zig reiterates his jobless status, hence absence. However, the other individual states its unimportance. Zig consequently agrees, claiming no loss is possible. Inquiring about the lead character's actual appellation, he replies that his moniker was Kong. Hearing that label, Guilford acknowledges familiarity, remembering the grocery store proprietor's son, also Kong, a youthful companion of his female offspring, evoking recollections of bygone times, days gone by. Anxious, the main character asks his designation. The man questions if he had not spoken it previously, responding that his label was Taesu. Zig inquired about his daughter's appellation, making Guilford inquisitive about his reasons for knowing. The youth mentions considerable time had passed. Guilford, perplexed and bewildered, states his lack of understanding. Then he recalls his daughter's friendship. Later, the system announces dwindling energy reserves, and his vitality was steadily diminishing, waning. Recalling events with Guilford, his companion, the youth states that after rigorous practice training, he barely entered ARPI, achieved admittance, because his physique was utterly depleted, fatigue, stating he progressed by undertaking dwarven tasks and toiled diligently, believing he might acquire secret skills. However, the dwarves declined, refused, rejected him, inquiring if Zig assumed they would aid him gratuitously, and they already understood he desired to pilfer their knowledge. The program announced his endurance was insufficient, low, prompting him to ingest nourishment sustenance. Entering a mercantile establishment, a shop, Ziggy is astonished because all was overpriced, exorbitant. The dwarf declared this shop had minimal prices in town. The lad thought the city had not yet balanced the costs, declaring he would simply acquire a single potato. But upon inspecting his personal storage, his inventory, he discovered he possessed no currency, no money. Recalling he had completely exhausted it, all squandered, requesting metal during gold fever rush period. Inquiring if the small man could lessen price, reduce payment. Simultaneously, Zig is escorted outside, taken out, removed. Currently, the main character was prone on the earth floor, believing he had not consumed any nourishment, sustenance, food, wondering if he would perish, expire, decease this way. However, he could not die and must vend that armor, feeling dejected, sorrowful, because it possessed remarkable power. Then someone greets him, saying the armor looked fine, great, and inquiring if he desired, wished to vend it, trade it. Zig believes a buyer had materialized, emerged, shown up, wondering if fortune chance was in his favor, on his side. Then the small man proposes 5 million to acquire the armor, leaving the youth astonished by the substantial amount sum, where he ultimately consents to the proposition agreement deal. But when he obtains the payment, the money, the funds, the lead character is bewildered, perplexed, disoriented. And when he observes the small man, the dwarf, the little person, he was already escaping, absconding, fleeing, striking a door. Zig requests the small man to emerge, exit, come out. Yet he stated he would remain there indefinitely. Within the dwelling, the small man disassembled the barrier, believing the last gem was ultimately removed, inquiring about the nature of the difficulty. Later, our hero was consuming nourishment, wondering if that little man thought he would truly yield, declaring his preparedness to become a hired killer. Scrutinizing those individuals in the backdrop, he perceived that they were youthful dwarves, where they commenced painting the small man's residence exterior, questioning the rationale behind their actions. Despite their juvenile status as youngsters, Zik disapproved attempting to halt the young ones, but they claimed they were doing nothing harmful. Then our protagonist seized the tool from the child's grasp, claiming he desired to educate them properly, commencing to fully color the small man's barrier. Meanwhile, the gentleman continued laboring on the protection, stating that it was unavoidable necessary, wondering if he should proceed to the frozen fortress. He, however, disliked conflict combat violence, stating having someone else fight would be beneficial. Upon opening the entrance doorway portal, Zig observes the small man, saying he finally appeared, requesting the gentleman to return his protective barrier, because obtaining it caused him great hardship suffering. However, the small man remains quiet, speechless, mute, inquiring if he drew, illustrated all that. But the youth states it was trivial compared to his actions. Examining, observing, scrutinizing Zig's artwork illustrations, the small man finds it astonishing seeing his attire garments. He undoubtedly was a metalworker, craftsman, blacksmith. Then he states he will return his protective shield, requesting release while giving the shield to the youth boy. Zig notices it is shattered, fragmented, broken into pieces. Small man mentions he did well disassembling it, taking it apart, and now a main character could reconstruct, reassemble, rebuild it. Zig in turn inquires if small man truly disassembled his shield, and the man confirms gripping small man's shoulder firmly. Lead character states, expresses, declares it was remarkable, inquiring, wondering how he accomplished the feat. Blacksmithing considered a solely crafting-based profession, and mending, fixing when utilizing costly materials for weapons was customary to employ formulas for item creation fabrication, because a flawed weapon due to a blunder would be wasteful. Then one could reclaim the components elements to forge weapons not detailed specified in any formula, and perhaps engender items possessing extraordinary capabilities. Shifting focus back to our main character hero, the youth believes he could alter existing items at will. As he desired, thus, he needed to acquire this knowledge skill, beseeching the dwarf to impart his wisdom. The dwarf subsequently concurs, agrees, assents in response, inquiring if the youth would become his pupil eventually. The dwarf requests Zeke to accompany him, follow along, asking if the lad was familiar with Andoras, confirming, acknowledging, and stating, declaring it was a mythical creature beast in the northeastern region, section area of the northern arc. Furthermore, moreover, it adored, treasured jewels, and welcomed them as offerings. The diminutive being then states, remarks that his associates were transporting treasures and relics. For that mythical creature, however, though he was unique, distinct, different, he would slay it then prosper, displaying, revealing, exhibiting his ambitious scheme preparations. Inquires about a new dungeon emergence appearance arrival, stating it was a common belief among the players, users, gamers. The individual mentions numerous hypotheses, conjectures, theories. In the interim, meanwhile, concurrently, the protagonist's companion recalls 14 days elapsed past gone, recalling she needed to converse with Ziggy, speak with Zig. Then a blood-soaked individual materializes, shows up, leaving the young lady frightened, terrified, horrified, inquiring about his condition, well-being state. While they were mending, tending, treating him to health, the man observes a shape-formed figure in the frozen water, believing it was a creature beast monster. The party readies themselves amidst the ice among frozen water. Someone states the mist was too dense, obscuring, hindering sight. As he exits, emerges, departs that haze, mist, fog. That individual was Zig, astonished upon seeing, observing Sia, questioning her presence, their reason for being, location. Recalling that the small person had stated, mentioned, remarked the frozen fortress was a newly emerged dungeon. and showed up materialized a fortnight prior 2 weeks ago, displaying document with creature depictions, illustrations. The hero stated those were Deborah's dungeon wooden constructs. The dwarf concurred but suggested closer inspection observation. They appear distinct different, and they are mobile move. That Deborah was a magical engineering prodigy genius, and the wooden soldier's core center essence. She produced potent, powerful energy. Impossible with an ordinary common soldier's heart core, but acquiring an authentic, genuine, original one. He could energize the dragon movement, stating it would be a challenge test trial. Because to become his student pupil apprentice, he should acquire 30 wooden cores hearts. Currently, she inquired if Zig's arrival due to mission. The young man affirmed yes, but stated it was terrible, dreadful, and he struggled. Then the young lady asked about joining her team, as she would provide him assistance aid help. Zig considered the large group a potential hindrance, but dungeon clearing wasn't his objective anyway regardless. The other female inquired about utilizing a metalworker, making Shay irate, enraged, questioning any opposition. And as Zig was going to express his agreement, the young lady grasped his hand, urging dungeon entry. Later, the party collectively battled the creatures. They utilized an offensive to vanquish the beasts, where Zig ultimately collected all the vital organs, completing the task objective, observing the squad. The lad believed their rapport was beneficial. They would effortlessly conquer the labyrinthine depths. But the sole issue upon labyrinth discovery, it was impossible to completely conquer it. Then the other female requested his assistance with a task. Instead of simply gathering objects. But Shay stated Zig was merely preserving his stamina, and if he displayed his capabilities, his prowess, she would be astonished, asking the lad if correct. Zig, in response, confirmed believing action necessary. The other male requested their silent cessation of talking, because the leader's chamber was directly ahead, and each individual should safeguard their own talents and possessions. Entering the chamber, the area, the space within. The other female is delighted for arriving initially first. Gazing forward, looking directly ahead, she observed someone weeping and was about to inquire about her well-being. The other male attempts to prevent her to halt her advance, but it was far too late because, in actuality, that was a creature attempting to petrify the young lady. Medusa is astonished because she evaded her own assault, but regardless, humans excelled at escaping. However, there remained a lone adventurer present there, utilizing her defensive capacity. Medusa attempts to strike, stating if her desire was death, she would grant it, returning to the distressed damsel. She mentions that it was quite frightening, and the other male remarks that Medusa was the most disagreeable beast in that particular game, and there existed a hearsay within the groups that Medusa was a formidable leader enemy in that game, expressing remorse for not providing a prior caution. But the young lady stated it was unneeded, superfluous, because it transpired solely due to her solo run, asserting their predicament was her responsibility. With the main character utterly petrified, Sia declared it was all right, acceptable, fine, instructing her to apologize to Zig post Medusa's defeat. Composing herself, the girl vowed to try her utmost hardest, but Shay, however, was unsure how to handle petrification attack monsters. However, her sibling said there was no need to worry, because he possessed a mirror reflecting everything. Meanwhile, the other gentleman was combating Medusa. The creature in turn stated the boy neared his limitations. Meanwhile, the other young lady, was mending his wounds, and together they utilize an attack to vanquish the beast. Nearing the man, the girl inquired about his well-being. Confirming his health, she is elated, saying they would battle, increasing the boy's capabilities, requesting Shay to assist with checking the distance range. The team then rejoins the ongoing fight. Meanwhile, the hero remained frozen, terrified, paralyzed, awaiting the end, hoping for any Medusa assault. Sia utilizes her power ability to strike the creature beast. Then the companion comrade also launches an attack. propelling Medusa backward away afar. The beast then declares them truly bothersome, irritating. The companion then warns them to brace themselves, requesting the lad youth to disable deactivated. Simultaneously, Medusa employs her petrifying power ability, directing the power ability toward the adventurer's explorers. Seizing the mirror glass, the lad youth aims it precisely, successfully repelling the incoming attack. The team rejoices, wonders if they truly vanquished her. However, they unfortunately had not yet prevailed. But they need not worry because Medusa was petrified, frozen. Observing the beast, a glow radiates from her chest. Beginning to fracture, the petrification is reversed, undone. The beast then declares that mortals cannot conquer her. The adventurer's explorers question her unpetrification, readying once more for combat, utilizing his expertise. Medusa severely depletes all adventurers' vitality health, but a single individual remains standing upright, possessing an ability to resist collapsing, fainting. The youth is astonished Medusa was living alive, asserting such a creature lacked such a capability. Nevertheless, he must utilize the looking glass once more. Medusa uses her power, solidifying all adventurers. The system announces the hardened state condition could not be reversed until the rotation perished ended. Observing the reflecting glass mirror, Medusa states it was a hellish infernal construct, her sole flaw. But that was prior to encountering Deborah before her, and presently it no longer functions works, because she possessed the power granted by Deborah bestowed, making her impervious, resistant to all status ailments, and capable of utilizing certain powers of her leader mentor. The system declares Medusa received Deborah's safeguard shield, becoming mightier, more potent, powerful content. The beast declares she would not be defeated by anyone. Meanwhile, the young man remained frozen, terrified. He believed he was mistaken, incorrect in his assumption. The established model did not apply to every labyrinth. Medusa subsequently, in turn then, instructed the youth to feel privileged, grateful. He would be vanquished by Deborah's incantation magic. She conjured a massive shadowy sphere orb as she prepared to hurl it towards the lad. An enigmatic, unidentified entity materialized, emerged, decapitating Medusa and nullifying the boy's petrification. The individual responsible was Zig. The program announced he had conquered Medusa. Disgruntled, he claimed past ruin destruction. The main character, the hero, inquired about utilizing the metal workshop before departing. He desired to forge a weapon using those components. Zig possède exceptionnel crafting fabrication ability. Due to his inadequate, insufficient level rank, he was unable to replicate that premium top-tier shield. He could, however, utilize resources to construct weaponry. Examining the blade he had forged, crafted, the youth is pleased, content with his aptitude proficiency. The sole issue was this ability was usable one time only, and thus he desired to preserve it for an emergency situation, and never considered using it against Medusa the Gorgon. Then an individual yanks his garment shirt. The adventurers commence to hurl him skyward into the air, for he had conquered Medusa with a single strike. Sig inquires, questions their actions, behavior, conduct, but the young lady requested he not be timid, bashful, stating it was justified as the lad was truly remarkable, exceptional. Listening to the maiden words, pronouncement statements, Zig stays quiet, muted, and concurrently they are teleported. The mechanism informs it was a hidden chamber in the icy fortress. Gazing, observing their environment surroundings, the other female states she was misled, tricked, as nothing was present. Initiating a quest, they confirm it was unoccupied, vacant. Then the young man ponders perhaps Medusa was not the ultimate foe. Zig subsequently replies, answers likely, possibly not, because Medusa is a formidable, powerful boss-level opponent adversary and possessed a concealed covert attack strategy. Furthermore, something clandestine existed within that chamber. Tumbling to the floor, the young lady inquires his well-being, but upon observing the stone rock, he erupts in laughter, leaving the assembly bewildered, requesting Sia to observe that stone rock. confirming it was a blemish mark upon the surface. And observing it, Z utilizes his grain ability, commencing to shatter the stone table. Unveiling a map, the two females are astonished, inquiring how he discovered it. Then the other fellow requests to peruse it, utilizing his aptitude to decode the communication. It described an ancient society that emulated God in its hubris. At the identical instant moment, the timepiece begins to chime and radiance starts to emanate in the chamber. Transitioning to the leader, the other chap inquires its veracity, because an airborne stronghold was unearthed in merely 2 weeks, confirming it was, as he presumed, and that delaying the update was advantageous. If events unfolded according to the schedule, it would generate substantial news and media attention. Returning to our central protagonist, main character, the party was transported to an alternate location, and this particular program declares that they were the initial discoverers of the stronghold. Every member obtains recognition accolades and the designation title of Area Fortress Discoverer. The group inquires if that was the Ice Palace compensation. At the identical instant moment, another individual emerges inquiring about Cyan family affiliation, and a goat materializes claiming to offer greetings welcome. Within the interior of the stronghold fortress, the goat informs His Majesty of visitor arrival presence. Meanwhile, Rupee contemplated the nature of the predicament. In the royal chamber, the adventurers receive a reception. The king declares himself sole sovereign of Messenia, and his appellation is Ivanus. His level was 120, and he resembled the bygone Messenian monarch ruler. The two young ladies become frantic, distressed, believing that he was an apparition, a spirit. But the other lad requested they compose themselves, relax, because it was merely a phantom, an ethereal being, which was a spectral type creature entity, leaving Shay further distraught, as it was truly a spirit. However, the other lass asked Shay to remain composed, because she would illuminate it, make it radiant. The monarch in turn inquires if they would heed his tale. Sometime subsequently, His Highness commences narrating. For millennia, for countless ages, his realm flourished, thrived, its mystical technology aided the world, thus governing the kingdom peacefully, harmoniously. However, that was a predicament for being excessively progressive. His realm was ravaged, decimated, destroyed, for the transgression of encroaching upon the divine domain, and only a handful of survivors escaped via that dirigible. But ultimately, they became confined subterranean, becoming phantoms, wraiths, nevertheless, regardless. He harbors no remorse, no regrets. And if pursuing enlightenment was incorrect, deities should bear responsibility for human creation thus. His civilization accumulated wisdom vanished from chronicles, stating airship sole heritage his realm kingdom. He desired to construct a stronghold bastion, so future progeny would know their accomplishments' triumphs, requesting the assembly's assistance aid. Then objective presented, they should reconstruct the vessel. Uncertain what to do, a girl voiced support approval, because she felt compassion, empathy for that monarch. The lead character declared he also concurred, agreed, because clandestine operations were uncommon and frequent, and understanding that game refusing would lead to conflict, would inevitably result in a confrontation clash, which they would undoubtedly forfeit if they engaged them. In that predicament, all consented to join the endeavor. The framework notified they had embraced the assignment, and each participant will be delegated a duty responsibility, presenting the allocation to the main hero protagonist. The youth would have to restore a factory installation and fabricate fractured components to restore the power facility. Noticing that Zig believes everything exceedingly challenging, she inquires about the tasks they were assigned received, responding explaining what their duties would involve. The monarch bestows upon them a present, a gift, where they become astonished by their exceptional quality. Soon after, the other lad asks to pose an inquiry, since the sovereign stated they were the initial visitors in 3 centuries, inquiring if he referred to Deborah from 300 years prior. The ruler confirms, because that lady pledged to reconstruct his dirigible. And the lead character also desired to pose another inquiry, questioning the location of the egress to the surface above. However, he also was unaware because if he possessed knowledge, he would have already departed left exited. Numerous explorers were observing the glacial palace fortress, questioning its degree of difficulty, challenge, hardship. Meanwhile, the lass, who had pilfered from the main character hero, inquires if they desire a mystical looking glass. Because the leader, there was a Medusa pondering, contemplating. The lad states he lacked a looking glass mirror, pondering how he might evade the incoming assaults. Moments later, the young lady displays her wares merchandise, but simultaneously, she nearly struck by a projectile, and amidst the frozen fissure crevice, Zig's cohort emerges, stating it was as he predicted. They simply needed to excavate toward the audible breeze. Gazing around, he observes numerous adventurers watching him. The throng is perplexed because Zig exited through the barrier. Furthermore, their appellations designations were dissimilar, inquiring about the nature of an airship. Concurrently, a young woman speaks, utters words. Her companion mentioned a celebratory gathering at the ice palace. A multitude approaches the protagonist concealed behind a glacial rock. Sia states that speaking calmly about that was quite challenging, proposing they discuss it in the actual physical world reality. A short while subsequently afterward later, the protagonist, gazing in the mirror, contemplates his next course of action, stating, remarking, observing. He had diligently crafted an imposing persona within the game, and if they witnessed him in the flesh in person, they would undoubtedly feel let down, disheartened, contemplating if attendance truly necessary, worthwhile. Later, a young lady presented Arpedia News online digitally, stating that the initial report broadcast announcement concerned an event causing gaming community upheaval because unexpectedly a collapse stronghold materialized, and per certain informants, insider sources, it correlated with the icy palace unearthing discovery, inquiring about the link between floating citadel and frozen palace as discoverers' names mentioned. The location finders' identifiers were about to be revealed. A gentleman paused the recording, claiming exhaustion fatigue. Then a small female child questioned why he prevented their game entry access. Because individuals desired to locate them, discover them. However, for the gentleman male individual, that was the predicament dilemma issue. Because people solely sought new dungeon information. Then the young lady suggested preparedness readiness. Glancing at the timepiece, he wondered about Zig's absence delay, stating the main character arrival was slightly delayed. And as he glances sideways to his side, a person greets them. It was Zig, expressing regret for tardiness. Moments afterward, a short, while subsequently, the young lady states it was improbable due to in-game events. The leading man was dissimilar distinct. Then each individual begins to state their names, introduce themselves. So Zig understands that the fellow was from the identical training grounds, where he practiced martial arts, leaving CYA astonished, amazed, because the hero trains at her paternal training hall, her father's dojo, remarking on the numerous coincidences occurring globally in existence. However, Zig is startled, astounded by this information, for he was unaware she was Guilford's offspring, his daughter. Announcing his appellation was Kong, leaving the lass stunned, surprised. Later, they discussed their shared youth camaraderie, their childhood friendship, claiming lack of recognition was not her transgression, not her fault, and his visage familiarity was not unusual, not odd. But considerable time had passed since their last encounter, seeing each other. Acknowledging the lad with a greeting, however, the other female requested their concentration, attention to focus. They gathered, convened to deliberate the assignment task. As they were conferring, conversing, dialoguing, hours elapsed, and evening approached, descended, fell. The assembly concluded their discussion, deliberation, dialogue. Zig stated his residence was in the contrary direction, opposite way. Thus he was already departing, withdrawing, going away. But nevertheless, however, yet Sia requested him to remain briefly. They desired his contact information, with the contact details added, appended, included. Zig remarked it had been some time since he shared contact information details. Simultaneously, the youth received a message alert notification, wondering if it was among the trio who obtained his contact. Upon viewing, checking, glancing at the mobile device, the protagonist questioned what digits that represented what number that was, and when he responded, replied, answered. An unfamiliar entity expressed it was delightful to make his acquaintance. Addressing him using the former moniker of his user profile, Zig, enraged, infuriated, demanded to know his identity, declaring he was the one who erased his profile, and that it was quite enjoyable to craft a new persona character. The main character commences yelling, loudly shouting. The caller inquires about his prior sadness, dejection, melancholy, because he had exhibited great kindness, generosity, compassion in the match. Perplexed, Zig wonders if they had prior in-game acquaintance. Confirming, the man asks about absent recollection, recall, memory. Requesting protagonist relaxation, no fight was instigated. Composing himself, the youth inquires about the caller's intentions, desires, requesting simply to engage in a wager, gamble, a bet. Claiming he played Arpadept solely to discard compromised items, materials. They should engage in hide and seek before item disposal, discarding. And if he could successfully locate his avatar, his in-game persona, he might reinstate Bart's due to his exceptional hacking prowess aptitude. Character restoration was an insignificant, trivial matter task, inquiring about consequences of failing to apprehend capture him. The hacker threatens blacksmith account deletion, eradication, removal. The youth becomes contemplative, pensive, thoughtful, pondering, stating that upon discovery, upon finding him, locating him, he would inflict a severe beating, a brutal pummeling. Preparation was advised, recommended sometime subsequently later. A guard proclaims the man possesses genius-level intellect brilliance, stating that tracing the communication was impossible, requesting the youth to relinquish his pursuit. Zig states he anticipated this outcome already. Recalling the technologist's pronouncements, declarations, Zig contemplates the individual identity. Simultaneously, he strikes his face to regain composure. He cannot succumb to antagonization's incitements. Regardless, his strategy remained unaltered, unchanged, which was establishing a metalworker reputation by following distribution channels, delivering cores to the small man. The young man requested to acquire his method skills. Jubilant small man declares he genuinely succeeded, now stating he could finalize the mythical creature. However, the hero still desired dismantling knowledge. Then the small man presents an item to the youth, inquiring about the object's nature, purpose. The man states it was his educational resources, a volume containing great testing fundamentals essentials, requesting him to peruse it thoroughly, attentively. When the small man departs, Zig deems him careless, wondering if that was his instructional method. Examining the text, Zig is astonished by its contents. Then a task is assigned to the young man, the lad, expressing remorse to the small person for the error, stating the book was exceptional, unparalleled, superb, and he would learn assimilate all its techniques. Moments later, the main character becomes apprehensive, disbelieving it invariably concluded with fragments, and that the dish was quite delicate, brittle, frail. As per the book's guidelines, instructions, directions, déconstruction nécessitat arme destruction impairment. But the resilience was initially very insufficient, contemplating whether he should surrender, yield, concede. But recalling the programmer's pronouncements, declarations, the youth believes he was unable, incapable, powerless, claiming he would persist until it was flawless. Concurrently, the female who pilfered from the hero was imbibing, declaring her enterprise was wrecked, all due to Zig. However, it was contrary. She should have heeded the boy. A gathering in the backdrop inquires what's occurring, because an individual was contributing, donating surplus items, simply due to possessing extra excess, superfluous goods. Meanwhile, Zig was recumbent, prostrate on the earth ground. The diminutive person subsequently, in turn conversely, was utterly astonished, amazed as mythical beast moved. Transitioning back, returning to the main hero protagonist, Zig was attempting to construct a timepiece. Then the notification declared its successful completion fabrication, elating the youth, capturing a digital image snapshot. Zig remarks stated it felt like a significant, momentous occasion. Thus, he should capture a photograph picture. But concurrently, simultaneously, flames engulfed the dwelling residence. The culprit was the small man's automated mechanical dragon, observing the entity, the guild inviter person declared the occurrence event to be remarkable, extraordinary, confirming his desire to partake, engage, participate. But he needed to locate, discover, find Zig first, because he had commissioned a substantial quantity of metal iron and received no delivery confirmation notification message. Simultaneously, concurrently, a metal rod struck the individual man, resulting in his demise. Witnessing the event, the young lady states individuals were perishing, expiring, due to a mythical beast materializing unexpectedly abruptly, mentioning it was fortunate, serendipitous, auspicious, capitalizing upon the presented chance moment. The last commences pilfering goods from vendors, and a silhouette advances towards her. And it was the metallic, legendary creature, positioned before her with a menacing glare, readying an assault offense strike. The maiden inquires about the beast's location presence, as she was about to endure the onslaught. The monster short-circuits and consequently detonates, leaving the damsel relieved for her survival. Transitioning back to the lead character inside the courthouse, Zig voices a protest disagreement, asserting his lack of involvement with that specific creature that demolished the urban area metropolis. The small man in response states that the lad was uninvolved, leaving the youth sentimental as he was shielding him. The gentleman stated Zig solely capable of relaying communications and could be deemed reliable, thus the two commenced disputing. Then the magistrate requested silence, stillness, quiet, noting the small man had collaborated with a human being to engineer a mythical beast that devastated the metropolis. The little man claims the mishap transpired solely because the alliance had rejected his proposition. Recommendation council, inquiring if all had witnessed, because it truly was a legendary creature, and when he declared his undertaking scheme, all ridiculed him, stating it would never become airborne. However, that had been the ultimate consequence outcome. Furthermore, it was achieved inexpensively in a challenging setting. Observing the small man's utterances, Zig inquires if he was becoming unhinged, and if he prolonged speaking, he would be incarcerated for his remaining existence lifetime. The magistrate in turn requested all maintain silence, acknowledging the event was not his responsibility. However, the devastation caused was immense, substantial, stating he was subsidizing the fabrication expenses, and inside 30 days they would generate comparable harm destruction, stating that the small man was sentenced to forge a tool competent enough to vanquish the Andora's enemies, and if it remained undelivered, not presented, not solely him, but additionally our hero would face incarceration, a short while afterwards subsequently. The youth inquires why the little man uttered those words, and consequently, he would be imprisoned, jailed, confined. However, the gentleman tells him to remain calm, be at ease, since he spoke with forethought, deliberation, remarking he required the hero to journey to the fiery peak, asserting the beast's setback defeat was due to another cause, explaining various methods for its restoration, repair, fixing. Concurrently, in the meantime, simultaneously, our hero attempts departure, and the little man seizes the boy's limb, inquiring about his intended destination whereabouts, because he would provide compensation reward if he assisted him. Zig asks about the nature of the compensation reward payment. The little man in response, in turn conversely, replies that he possessed a hand covering capable of launching metal strands, with uncomplicated controls crafted from unique materials. Receiving the gauntlet, the lad is joyful, elated, asking what action is required necessary. Given the directive instruction once again repeated, to journey to Inferno Peak and acquire a dragon's core. Then the task objective assignment is unveiled. The hero must travel to the holy sanctuary shrine and secure the dragon's essence, core heart. A dragon's heart was the origin of its mystical power, an exceptionally uncommon, extraordinary object artifact, obtainable only with an absurd, ludicrous 47% chance, after vanquishing a dragon or discovering its demise place, stating that even on Bart's behalf, he never acquired one. He did not secure such a heart ever. The small man in response, in turn then says, He overheard something visiting the elven settlement previously, that the dragon near the previous elf leader chieftain journeyed to Inferno, peak seeking tranquility, serenity, peace. Zay becomes perplexed, bewildered, disoriented, lost, wondering if the dwarf suggested pursuing a dragon hunting, with dubious, questionable, unreliable intel. Moreover, in that location, gamers needed minimum level 80. Later, our hero soared in a hot air balloon. Meanwhile, an individual observed, watched him. Zig inside the balloon practiced his construction building. A cord struck his instrument device, causing it to descend. The youth inquired if the balloon malfunctioned, had a problem. Gazing down, he saw the girl with a fearful expression. However, the lad asked her meaning and if she knew the cost of homes with windows inside the dialogue box. Zig stated he nearly plummeted due to her, because of her, and since he provided assistance, aided her. The girl should depart leave, however. She declared she would not allow Zig to escape leave, inquiring if our hero believed she was unaware, ignorant of Zig pursuing the aerial citadel floating fortress. 72 hours elapsed since the fiery mountain incident event. The youth remarked on their swift, rapid arrival. As they journeyed, the girl wept, sobbed. The main character states he was off-duty, had engagements, but the young lady inquires his destination, their current location, because that particular location was incredibly perilous. Furthermore, only individuals level 80 plus permitted entry. Suddenly, a beast emerges behind the pair duo couple. A notification alerts identifies it as Scorpion Warrior, a creature inhabiting the volcanic area territory zone. As the monster nears the young woman, female girl, she ponders why this consistently occurs, repeatedly happens. Frantically, she implores Zig to eliminate that beast thing. Trapped, the hero considers he must act, now intervene. Suddenly, Scorpion Horde advances towards them all. Tearfully, Zig declares they are condemned, fated, doomed. However, the young ladies refuse to perish, die yet, urging the young man to act before the impending attack. An arrow strikes the scorpion creature, monster beast, where numerous lizard humanoids materialize, appear, emerge, vanquishing all the monstrous creatures, beings, entities. Zig was completely unaware what transpired occurred, but they had assisted, rescued, saved them all, wondering if they could comprehend his word speech. At that instant, the two are bound, restrained, captured, stating that the human encroached upon their domain land would function as an offering, a tribute, a victim. The hero ponders their destination, their course, because he never encountered lizard people on Bart's journey. Meanwhile, the young lady pleaded to depart, to exit, suggesting they consume, devour Zig instead in his place. Later, the main character was slumbering, sleeping, resting. Awakening, the lizards tugged the cylinder with a cord or rope. The lead character attempts to request aid for the girl, but she was completely disheartened, demoralized, defeated. Zig, conversely, on the other hand, in contrast, begins yelling, questioning the lizard's motive, reason, purpose. The lizard responds, stating they required a sacrifice, an offering, irritating the boy, inquiring whom they deemed a sacrifice. The boy senses his foot entering the molten rock, the magma, commencing to shriek, to yell in agony and pain. The lizard person requests silence, quiet, stillness, an embrace, his offering by severing the cord, the rope. Zig felt despair, his existence nearing its conclusion. However, someone demanded they halt, free the captives. That individual was the leader of the reptile people, stating they were emissaries of the money-honed deity. A short while later, afterwards, subsequently, the leader ponders if those people were truly envoys. Then the reptiles commence a heated dispute, saying they did not require assistance from the humans, asserting that he possessed great strength, power. But Zig mentions they had vanquished the scorpions, simply due to possessing superior numbers, quantity. The reptile demands the protagonist to remain silent, and the youth cautions the elder that reptile was menacing. Observing both, the leader suggests they compose themselves, requesting to escort the pair to confinement. Later, the two pleaded desperately for release, freedom, claiming they should heed Hone's pronouncements and lack strength to overcome the shaman's sorcerers. The other reptile states that Hone was correct, accurate, because the lizards were insufficient, inadequate. Nevertheless, he disliked those people, humans, The influential Hohn's decree was unquestionable absolute, implying he should know his required course of action, requesting the human's liberation release freedom. Meanwhile, the youth attempted to shatter the metal bars. Demolishing the basement, the boy states that alone won't impede him. They commence conferring, then Zig suggests that continuing onward would result in leaving her behind in that very instant moment. That reptile emerges observing their jailbreak escape. Then the pair begin fleeing from the reptile lizard. The reptilian humanoid requests they halt, they must converse. But Zig was disinclined towards dialogue conversation, displaying an offensive hand, gesture a middle finger, inquiring if they believed they could truly halt him. The reptilian humanoid replies that's why he despised humans people, giving a signal gesture to his comrades' companions. He obstructed path, realizing they were trapped. The youth stated they had no escape route. The reptile attempted to caution he needed dialogue. Dig believed they were apprehended would be thrown in a molten rock, taking his mining tool for self-defense protection, stating if no path existed, he would create one. He would make an opening by demolishing the barrier wall. The reptilian humanoid tried to say he could not breach that wall, but it was far too late, much too late already. And an observer in the shape of an "I watched them closely." An unknown entity mentioned he had made a discovery found it, stating he was on the west continent and found it simple easy. Due to the cavern collapsed the cave in crumbling. Then the other female commanded her subordinates to proceed go. As they escaped, the reptile inquired what he had done. But Zig stated he had simply created an exit a way out. But the reptile mentioned it was a dire predicament situation. Simultaneously, a giant orb materialized behind them appeared. While escaping, Zig wondered if that was the fire magician sorcerer. Then numerous human warriors emerged amidst the chaos situation. That previous woman was also present, vanquishing the reptiles. A gory conflict ensues, meanwhile transpires concurrently. Zig inquires about the events and origins of those individuals. Furthermore, all those warriors possessed a high-level rank. Recognizing that additional humans had shown up appeared. A lizard creature readies himself for combat confrontation. Summoning his troops to engage, the hero watches intently, inquiring about the subject matter of his speech words, questioning if that reptile being was unaware of being outnumbered. Then an individual seizes his arm, takes hold of firmly. It was the leader head of the lizard people reptiles. In the fight, the strong girl slaughters the lizard warriors. But it was the alternative, different lizard she would confront. Sometime afterwards, the battle had already concluded, finished, and that lizard was vanquished, defeated upon the earth's soil. The girl, in response, was tormenting him, inflicting pain, demanding he express remorse for his arrogance pride. The lizard declares he would not comply, perform any action. A human implores, requests, pleads to be terminated, executed. But the girl still desires, enjoys to inflict torment on him, declaring she would remove one of his eyes. Another female arrives, stating that was sufficient enough. It was Sia, cautioning the objective was to retrieve the nest, and not to inflict pain, torment upon the lizards. The other female inquires if she was to command direct, instructing her to be silent or they would engage in combat. Then the lizard bites in her foot, her lower extremity. As the lizard escapes, the female commences screaming loudly. Later, the lizard humanoid was with a protagonist assembly. His leader, in his turn and return, subsequently, states he was about to clarify their narrative's accounts. Zig conveys he was unaware of the specifics particulars, inquiring if he was the origin source, expressing remorse. However, for the lizard creature reptile, merely expressing remorse, regret was insufficient, inadequate, stating the conflict battle entails results in mortality, and that could not be undone, reversed, rectified. And because of them, they failed safeguard the nest. The youth inquired what he was discussing, speaking about. If he was becoming unhinged, starting disputing, bickering. But the leader requested they compose themselves, implored them to heed his words, his pronouncements. His clan had safeguarded a dragon's inheritance for an extended duration, a lengthy period, because the fire gathering, the flame confluence was present there. And additionally, the melody of Hidea's, its music, its song, observing the connections, linking the main character, the protagonist. inquires if it could potentially be the dragon's core, its heart. Meanwhile, C's party remained situated at that location in that spot. But a reptile humanoid still obstructed them, confronted them, wielding magic, returning to the central figure, the lead character. The group discusses a spiritual guide, a mystic. All commenced when that youth betrayed them. She distinguished herself from fellow children during her youth, her early years. Beyond possessing intelligence, being bright, being clever, she articulated flawlessly and additionally commanded magic, wielded enchantment. No other term besides prodigy could define her, characterize her, and therefore the leader bestowed upon her the shaman role, the mystic title. And to fulfill their anticipations, their prospects, their hopes, she revitalized her clan, her tribe, her people. However, one day, her behavior shifted, altered, changed. Because abruptly she craved the dragon's heart-potent energy. She devised a scheme to enslave the entire tribal community. The reptile had placed complete trust, confidence in her. But avarice, covetousness consumed her completely, and she audaciously purloined Mighty Han's inheritance legacy. The heart's energy should safeguard the fiery mountain peak, questioning if she intended to obliterate their homeland dwelling. They confined her, but ultimately she absconded, fled. Later it appeared she hadn't relinquished the dragon's heart, because she commenced employing humans to assault them. They battled with their utmost, maximum capacity strength. But without the dragon's heart, vital life, force, essence, havoc would descend upon the blazing Inferno mountain. Because if Great Horn's heritage legacy vanished, dissipated, the volcanic potency the heart suppressed would detonate, erupt. The young lady inquired if they should evacuate the location area. But the reptile replied they would remain safe presently, because they secured the dragon's heart within molten lava. So they were presently powerless, unable to take action. Returning to the other reptilian creature, lizard, he apprises the humans of the ritual, conducted monthly to bolster the heart, strengthen the core. Merely 1 week remained before the commencement of the rite, and they would undoubtedly return to seize that location. Within that time frame, and if they safeguarded that area, the reptile would compensate them twofold, double the amount. The other female in turn states that among all the non-player characters, he was her preferred, favorite, most beloved individual, asserting that she would defend that cavern for a week, 7 days. Observing that collective, she becomes contemplative, thoughtful, rejoining the protagonist party company. The leader of the reptiles cautions, warns, admonishes. If they fail to retrieve the dragon's core essence heart, the fiery mountain would erupt, detonate, explode entirely. Later, the protagonist team journeyed across a barren wasteland. The girl in turn inquires if the boy was becoming unhinged mad, causing a commotion with the words previously uttered by Zig, inquiring if he had previously encountered those individuals' people, because they possessed extraordinary, immense, formidable power. Zig character name. He conversely believes the lady followed him willingly, and yet she was irritating him, annoying him, bothering him. Simultaneously, the young woman observes, notices something. Gazing upon that Egyptian figure sculpture, she inquires what it was at that moment. The program states it was a dungeon guardian statue from an alternate reality. Meanwhile, in the meantime, Sia was reclining, resting in her chamber, inquiring her friend about her mission assignment progress. Answering, she had discovered, located nothing of importance. She asks about her own mission progress advancement, leaving the young lady contemplative about all that occurred, responding that she was uncertain, unsure, didn't know. Recognizing there was no solution, response reply, she inquired if her companion had dozed off. Returning to the main character lead hero, the program states he had successfully disassembled and acquired a strong metal iron plate sheet. His deconstruction ability improved to the 10th level, suggesting he should remain awake through the whole night. For timely completion, you must hurry. Then main character commands the reptiles. However, one lizard dislikes human instruction. He should train Zig that caused their failure. Why believe loss against humankind was inevitable, but the lizard felt not yet conquered. Main character urged lizard to think critically. Numerous reasons existed for defeat loss. Biggest reason was their inferior weaponry. Utilizing that particular weapon was foolish. they would face certain annihilation slaughter. Therefore, he would completely replace their gear. However, Lizard stated it was a paternal keepsake, leaving the young man astonished, surprised. System confirmed keepsake boy expressed apologies. Lizard man said it was all right, no problem. It was merely a tool without deeper meaning. But Z felt much worse about it all, describing the weapon in such a manner. He promised to repair it, fix it, mend it, claiming he would enhance its surpass previous beauty. Later, our hero presents the axe to the reptile, though. To him, it remained unrestored, appearing peculiar odd. The youth inquires why he deemed it unusual, bizarre, because he perceived it as remarkably impressive, striking. But the reptile states he did not require that. Returning to the maiden, she examined the leader's pendant, remarking the necklace was exceptionally valuable, precious. Drawing closer to the reptile, nearing him, she notes that the adornment was truly exquisite, stunning. Inquiring if a trade was desired his stone for her pendant. Nevertheless, he declines because the neckwear was a gift from elders, leaving the lady further intrigued, captivated. For the pendant was genuinely remarkable, extraordinary, displaying various items, hoping for the reptile's agreement. The reptile creature conversely inquires about trading for his held possession, leaving the lass further enthusiastic. It was a sand bloom, utilized as a component eye. Concurrently within Sia's assembled group, the young lady, enraged, inquired about Zig's group's attack timing. The other gentleman, observing her heightened tension, anxiety, believed the lady possessed minimal, very little forbearance, patience. Then a gentleman inquired his intended route, destination, whereabouts. Replying, the gentleman stated at this current pace, tempo, velocity, he would become unhinged and sought a stroll, a walkabout, while traversing the arid, barren desert landscape. The gentleman observed, noticed the young lady woman, hailing, beckoning, summoning her, getting her attention. The gentleman inquired if she had tricked, deceived the lizard man, requesting permission to pose a single simple question, inquiry. Discerning the lady had disregarded him, completely ignored him. The gentleman unsheathed his blade, his weapon, brandished his sword, inquiring the lizard's concealment location unless revealed, divulged, disclosed. He would terminate, extinguish, end her very existence or life. The lady conversely inquired about the gentleman's peculiar behavior. The gentleman inquired if she was deliberately goading, provoking him, but such tactics would prove futile as he prepared to engage, assault her. Zig materializes amidst the conflict, utilizing his limb-shattering technique. Zig inquired about the young lady presence there, because she appeared quite frail, delicate, weak, initiating a verbal disagreement with her dispute. Then the other gentleman claimed ignorance of her romantic partner. Rapidly, both refuted it, but for the gentleman, it seemed something transpired between them regardless of this situation. Male-female relations were a societal bane, a societal ill. He vowed to annihilate, obliterate everything in existence. Zig questioned the gentleman's peculiar behavior, his odd conduct, inquiring if he desired an altercation, a confrontation, a fight. Simultaneously, the gentleman advanced toward the main character. As he glanced, shifted his gaze to the side peripherally, he observed a multitude of reptilian creatures, lizards. The reptile sorcerer commanded preparation for engagement combat, because the lizard men were imminently approaching. Zig's attacker perished along with the entire military force. They progressed, utilizing his unique capability, his special skill. The silver-haired man warned about approaching lizard men. The troops became enthusiastic, eager, ready for combat. Then the magicians collectively conjured fire magic. The companion states it was undoubtedly a triumph, a victory. At that pace, the reptilian humanoids should be eradicated, and they would eliminate the remaining vestiges, the debris. When they observe amidst the devastation the wreckage, they become astonished, startled, amazed, because the reptiles entirely unscathed, still armored. The magicians surprised they endured such an onslaught. Zay amidst the lizards inquires if it was remarkable, noting the armor combined with the magician's essence. Slime and essence with minimal offensive defensive capability, but incredibly resilient, resistant against magic spells. Then a man identifies the main character, stating he was renowned, celebrated in Baldin City, known as the Restoration, the Mending Monarch, the King. The other inquires if he was also a metalworker or smith, because he assumed he was a high-ranking top player. Hearing the youth had disparaged, insulted him, offended. Zig becomes enraged, infuriated, demands a confrontation, commanding the reptilian creatures to proceed to attack. During the commencing battle, a foe declared the reptile people insignificant, but instantly his strike was thwarted, leaving the man astonished, amazed, inquiring if they always possess such protection, cautioning his allies to exercise vigilance, because now the reptiles were formidable, powerful. Meanwhile, his comrades were being slaughtered. Urging retreat, they had absolutely no chance opportunity. But the other female continued battling them combat, calling her companions cowardly for fearing mere reptiles. Simultaneously, another reptile emerged. Assaulting her, she managed to protect herself. Barely noticing the reptile returned with altered armor. She inquired if he believed it would alter anything matter. The reptile in turn demanded their nest return, advancing toward her as they sparred. She thought the reptile stronger than before, yet still, even if improved, he remained a beast, a monster. Utilizing her rage, blood, skill, ability, power, augmenting her attributes, capabilities, stats, where she ultimately shatters the reptile's protective covering. A reminiscence of the reptile emerges with the main character, inquiring about his absence of protective gear, but the reptile claims he had no requirement for it, because a combatant's protection was his physique, his body. Nevertheless, as she places the armor upon him, remarking on its lack of weight, its lightness. Moreover, he had toiled harder to craft it as the commander, and with it he possessed another opportunity at existence, at life. The reptile states that demise was insignificant mid-battle, but the youth inquires if he would continue speaking foolishly, because his primary responsibility was safeguarding his tribe's heritage, questioning why he spoke as if his existence was worthless. Returning to the present, the reptile states Zig was correct, because his comrades' lives held significance, were important, asserting he would defend all within his tribe as people. The lead character, observing the ongoing conflict, the fight, believes they would effortlessly achieve victory, triumph, because the conditions were advantageous for them in their favor. Recalling his intended plan, he asserts obtain the dragon's core, its heart, but recalls the leader's chief's pronouncements concerning consequences, removing the heart from its location place, stating he overlooked the most crucial element thing, and that paramount matter was the mission objective, declaring he crafted the armor due to because of him. Thus he simply needed to clear the volcano, believing nobody was paying attention to him. But concurrently, simultaneously, at that instant moment, he shot in the foot by projectile, falls down. Yelling in agony was that an assault by Mystic, observing that figure's shape outline form. He discerns it was a gamer not attacking lethally, but to hinder, restrict, restrain movement, mobility. Inquiring wouldn't immediate elimination be simpler, easier. But Zig lacked time to ponder that, contemplate, because they required visual confirmation to fire, shoot. The female states she cannot see her objective due to the stones, so the hero advances toward her. Before the female, he recognizes it's Shia, astonished by the unexpected reunion encounter. Meanwhile, the other female was within a cavern grotto, pondering, contemplating how Zig's company progressed. The senior elder stated all would be satisfactory well, due to the belongings, possessions the hero possessed held, declaring gratitude upon their return arrival. But for the young lady to express appreciation, thanks, should be through deeds, actions, not mere spoken words. Commencing donning all the reptile's garments, attire, the maiden stated something was absent, lacking, missing. The pendant necklace adorning his neckline, throat. But the reptile claimed he was unable, incapable, because that neckwear was bestowed by Master Hone. Then another speaker stated that was troublesome, difficult. It was the witch doctor, declaring without that adornment, he could not manipulate the reptile's mind's thoughts. Assaulting, attacking the lizard creature being, inquiring if the leader felt he was also misled, tricked, because if he believed so, he was mistaken, incorrect. His ambitions were solitary confinement with him initially. The leader in return inquires about the shaman's presence there. Then the mystic begins discussing that particular pendant, which was an artifact enabling spirit communication, and also mental manipulation of simple-minded beings' creatures. Then the reptile leader attempts to summon his protectors, but it was futile, pointless, ineffective, because the sorcerer had induced slumber in the entire community, declaring that very fact. He never anticipated you deploying nearly all forces to the lair. The leader questions his motivations behind all of these actions. Enraged, the shaman exclaims, "You should already know the reason why. Because of the foolish, ridiculous, absurd regulation he had established," declaring to conclude it permanently once and for all completely. But then the young lady abruptly halts the confrontation, shifting focus back to the main hero character. She inquires about Z's presence in that specific location spot. The young man states he was there for a specific task objective, inquiring about her current activity there at that moment. With both providing identical responses, answers replies. They inquired about each other's assigned tasks, missions, objectives, commencing a dispute over speaking privileges first. Then Sia states she was on a mission to restore Ariel's fortress, recalling an encounter with a mystical elf creature, inquiring about its location, seeking guidance to find it. But the gentleman expresses regrets, apologizes for his lack of knowledge, because the ethereal wings of wind were secured in the spirit realm dormitory. Distraught, the young lady asks about the spirit's whereabouts location. But for a mortal human, finding a spirit would prove impossible, an impossibility, because it was a domain where elementals reside, inhabit, dwell. Humans lack comprehension, understanding of that particular realm. Entry would result in permanent departure, no return possible. Encia considers her potential course of action options, because she required the wings of wind in her possession urgently. The elf proposes an alternate method of acquisition. Long ago, her forefathers bestowed a necklace upon Hideus, and possessing the necklace of spirit and soul combined, she should decipher the spirit's pronouncements, communications, messages. Later, Cilia was found reclining in a resting position, expressing the futility, pointlessness of her continued efforts, because she had been seeking the fiery mountain for numerous days, and no adornment had appeared, manifested. Then the mystic sorcerer materializes, inquiring if that was the jewel she sought, desired. Recognizing it, she asks its location, whereabouts, position, and while he brandishes it, displays it, exhibits it. She observes a reptile humanoid returning to the now. Zig inquires if the oracle spoke with her earlier, and the girl affirms because she overheard the craving for that pendant. Simultaneously, a lizard attacks Shay, declaring her the final surviving human being. Observing the girl collapsed on the earth, Ziga questions the assault on his companion comrade. But the reptile retorts she annihilated his kin, his people, inquiring if Z was betraying, forsaking them. But it wasn't. Then, when Zia stands up, the reptile horde opposed the duo, the pair. The hero, trapped, contemplates his course of action, next move, wondering if abandoning Zia was necessary because his demise would doom his mission if they battled the lizard men. It was a possibility because, utilizing his limb-shattering technique, his prospects would improve, grow stronger. Then the reptile stated that companions' lives were invaluable, confirming that he too was one of their allies. Zig released his armaments and declared he would not battle. The reptile requested to relinquish the female, but Zig refused, cautioning Sia was his partner. Thus he couldn't comply. The reptilian man became enraged, stating that it was preposterous, illogical, unreasonable, requesting again to surrender her, yield her, hand her over. Nevertheless, the hero still refused, declined, resisted, declaring he would not combat them or forsake his companion. But the lady mentioned that it was acceptable, all right, because no justification existed for them to quarrel, asserting they were completely misguided, mistaken, because the reptile leader had misled, tricked, deceived all. Returning to the other young woman, lady female, the mystic inquired if she knew who she was safeguarding. The girl responded she had absolutely no idea, but she couldn't allow somebody perish before her eyes, because it had been ages since she discovered a valuable. Acknowledging her desires have been voiced, uttered, expressed, she becomes flustered, humiliated, mortified regardless. The shaman could not remove him, escort him, take him. Their conversation remained unfinished, incomplete, pending. The shaman requests her to step to the side, move over. Simultaneously, concurrently, he is abruptly stabbed, pierced. Not solely him, but additionally in addition also. The young lady adds his strategies were careless, sentimental.